The Time Watcher Trap. Have you ever wondered if time notices you? Not just as something you move through, not just as a measurement you track on your watch, or in the mirror, or on the faces of your loved ones as they age. I mean, really, what if time itself sees you? What if, instead of being a river you're drifting down, time is an ocean that's aware, observing your every thought, every expectation, every moment you try to catch it, measure it, or force it to make sense? Let's begin with a simple question. Does time flow, or do we flow through time? You might say it's obvious. Of course, time moves forward, second by second, minute by minute, hour by hour. But what if that's not how it works at all? What if time is something utterly still, a landscape that only seems to change because you're walking through it? Or, stranger still, what if every time you try to pin down time, to notice it, to predict it, it changes the rules just to mess with you? Imagine that every clock is a trap, every calendar a lure, every attempt to predict the future or relive the past, an act that twists the fabric of time itself. This is the Time Watcher Trap, a paradox that says the very act of observing time, or thinking you understand it, causes time to watch you right back. And when time watches you, it refuses to be predictable. It slips, it stutters, it retaliates. Have you ever sat in a boring lecture or a never-ending meeting and felt every second stretch into infinity? And then, as soon as you're enjoying something, a concert, a vacation, the warmth of a lover's embrace, time vanishes, slipping through your fingers in a flash? This isn't just perception, it's time reacting to your attention. The more you want to hold on to it, the more it resists. The more you ignore it, the faster it escapes. Let's take this deeper. Modern physics tells us time is not absolute. Einstein showed us that time bends, stretches, and warps around gravity and speed. But there's a subtler, stranger layer: quantum theory. At the quantum scale, the act of observation changes the state of what's being observed. Electrons exist in a haze of possibilities until someone tries to look, to measure, to catch them. And then, instantly, they snap into a single reality. What if time is like that? What if the act of noticing time, worrying about the future, obsessing over the past, trying to predict the outcome, causes time to snap into whatever will most confound your expectations? Think about déjà vu, those uncanny flashes where you feel you've lived a moment before, or those days when everything feels off, when time seems to jump, skip, or even rewind for a split second. Some people call these glitches brain tricks, nothing more. But what if these are hints that time is more flexible, more responsive, and more vindictive than we realize? What if time notices when you're paying attention, and, like a trickster, bends itself just to keep you confused? There are stories, strange, unsettling stories, of people who claim to have lost hours, even days, with no memory of where the time went. Pilots, drivers, ordinary people walking down a familiar street. They look up, and suddenly the world has shifted. Sometimes it's a matter of missing time, sometimes it's the opposite. Moments that feel impossibly long. Dreams that last lifetimes in the space of a nap. A night that feels like eternity but passes in an instant. All of these could be symptoms of the Time Watcher Trap, a universe that notices when you notice and plays tricks in response. It gets even weirder. Have you ever tried to wait for something? You check the clock, 5 minutes pass, you check again, and suddenly 20 minutes have vanished. Or you try to meditate, to empty your mind, and suddenly your sense of time dissolves. Seconds feel like hours, or vice versa. It's almost as if time is testing you, responding to your awareness. In casinos, there are no clocks, because the owners know deep down that if you stop paying attention to time, you can lose days in the blink of an eye. Is it just psychology? Or is there something more, some fundamental principle that time bends around attention, warping and retaliating whenever you try to control it? Let's get personal. Think about your most intense memories, the moments that changed your life. Was it a slow build, or did everything change in a second? The birth of a child, the moment you lost someone you loved, a near-death experience, the instant you fell in love or had your heart broken. These moments, they don't obey the clock. Sometimes a lifetime fits inside a single heartbeat. Other times, pain stretches into eternity. What if these are not just tricks of emotion, but signs that time bends itself around your focus, growing sharper or softer depending on how closely you pay attention? Philosophers and mystics have whispered about this for centuries. The ancient Greeks spoke of kairos, time as a living, breathing opportunity, not just a measure. In some Eastern traditions, time is a circle, not a line. Quantum physicists talk about the block universe, where past, present, and future all exist at once, and your perception is just a spotlight moving through the landscape. But in the Time Watcher trap, there's something even more unsettling. The idea that time is not just a stage for your life. It's an actor itself. It notices your gaze, your hopes, your fears, and rearranges itself in silent retaliation. So what can you do? Is there an escape from the trap? Maybe not. Maybe the only solution is surrender. To stop trying to hold on to time, to let go of the obsession with clocks and calendars and plans, and simply live in the moments as they come. Or maybe the secret is even stranger, that by becoming fully present, by noticing time without grasping at it, you can step outside the trap, even for a heartbeat. Maybe joy, presence, love, and even grief are all portals that let you slip out of time's grip, if only for a breath. In the end, you might never know if time is truly watching you, but if it is, maybe it's not a punishment. Maybe it's a cosmic game. Maybe the secret is to stop fighting, to stop measuring, and start living. Because in the Time Watcher trap, every moment is a question. Are you watching time, or is time watching you? The dreamer's liability clause. Imagine this. You wake up in a cold sweat, your pulse hammering, breath ragged, the remnants of a nightmare still clawing at the edges of your mind. In your dream, you hurt someone. Not a faceless stranger, but someone you know. Maybe a friend. Maybe a rival. Maybe someone who hurt you, or someone you've never hurt in waking life. But in that shadowy realm of sleep, you did something unspeakable. And then, reality fractures. Because when you check your messages, you see that the very person from your dream is in pain. Maybe they woke with bruises. Maybe they had a panic attack. Maybe they lost sleep. Or were flooded by a fear they can't explain. And here's the question that cuts to the bone. Are you responsible? Can you be held to account for violence, betrayal, or harm committed not with your hands, but with your dreaming mind? It's the kind of question that sounds absurd until it isn't. There have been real moments in history and in modern courtrooms where dreams have entered evidence. People have confessed to acts they dreamed, believing it was real. Others have blamed dreams for actions committed in the waking world. I didn't mean to hurt her, someone might say. I dreamed it, and the lines got blurred. But what if that dream leaves a mark, physically, emotionally, spiritually, on someone else? What if your subconscious reaches out and shakes another person's soul? There are cultures where the dream world is not just fantasy, but a battleground. In certain indigenous traditions, dreams are as real as waking life, and harm done there can echo in the flesh. There are stories of shamans waging wars in the dreamscape, returning with wounds that bleed, wounds that scar, wounds that never truly heal. To those who believe, dreams are not just dreams. They are a shared reality, a space where intentions matter, where the heart is laid bare, where what you do can shape what is. But let's step into science for a moment. Sleep researchers have uncovered phenomena that border on the supernatural. There are cases of people who share dreams, or who wake with unexplained injuries after vivid nightmares. Science tries to explain it away. Psychosomatic responses, sleep paralysis, stress manifesting as physical pain. But what if those explanations are just a veneer, hiding something stranger beneath? What if our dreams really are entangled with the lives of others, not just in story, but in consequence? Let's go deeper. Think about the dreamer's liability clause as if it were a real law. Suppose society decided that what happens in dreams matters, that dream harm is real harm, that if you attack someone in a dream and they suffer, you are culpable. How would you defend yourself? You might say, but I have no control over my dreams. I can't be responsible for what my mind conjures in the dark. And yet, think of all the actions we take that are shaped by unconscious motives, impulses, habits, buried desires we don't even recognize. Is the dream world so different from the hidden world of our waking psyche? How many times have you hurt someone in life without meaning to, driven by fears or jealousies you barely understood? How often do we sleepwalk through our days, unaware of the damage we cause? If you are liable for your dreams, where does your responsibility end? Are you responsible for every fleeting image, every imagined transgression, every unspoken wish? Or is the dream world a safe zone, a place where the mind can play out darkness without consequence? Let's look at the real world, where this line blurs in unexpected ways. Consider the phenomenon of lucid dreaming, where people become aware that they are dreaming and can shape events within the dream. Some use it for healing, others for revenge. There are stories of people confronting their abusers in dreams, acting out the rage they never expressed in life. They wake with a sense of relief, sometimes guilt, sometimes triumph. But what if, across the world, that abuser felt a chill in the night, a sudden fear, a loss, a pain with no cause? Would you call it coincidence? Or evidence? Then, there are nightmares shared by entire families, even communities. Night terrors that sweep through villages, collective dreams that spark revolutions or tragedies. The 100th monkey effect, where one mind's insight seems to ripple through a population, changing behavior in ways that defy simple explanation. We know the mind is not an island. Our brains sink in conversation. Our moods are contagious. Our fears leap from person to person like wildfire. If that's true in waking life, why not in sleep? Why not in dreams? But here's where the story turns. What if the dream world is not just a mirror of your psyche, but a frontier, a place where you can become more than you are, or less? Some traditions teach that to harm in a dream is to reveal a hidden truth about yourself, that your shadow, given freedom in the dark, shows you what you are capable of, what you might do if unchained by conscience. Others believe that what you do in dreams is a rehearsal, that nightmares are warnings, that recurring dream violence signals wounds you must heal, not ignore. In these cultures, the dreamer's liability clause is not about punishment, but about responsibility to your own soul. You are accountable not because you harmed someone else in the dream, but because your mind is telling you something about anger, about fear, about desire, about guilt. If you ignore it, you risk repeating the harm in the world of light and breath. If you confront it, you can break the cycle. But then, let's imagine the unimaginable. Suppose for a moment that dreams really are shared spaces, that when you dream of someone, you are touching a deeper reality, a network of consciousness that links all living minds. If you hurt someone there, you have crossed a threshold. The harm is not just metaphor, it is real. Now, the dreamer's liability clause becomes a moral imperative. You must own your actions, even in sleep. You must face your shadow, heal your wounds, and use your dreaming mind to uplift, not destroy. And what of forgiveness? Can you be forgiven for dream sins? If someone tells you, "You hurt me in my dreams," do you owe them an apology? A conversation? A promise to do better, even if you never meant it, even if you never knew? In the end, the boundary between dream and waking is not as solid as we pretend. Our minds wander. Our hearts ache. Our wounds bleed through the veil, staining both worlds. Maybe you are not legally liable for what you do in your dreams, but you are not free of consequence. Every dream is a message. Every shadow is a chance to heal. Every imagined act is a whisper from the deepest parts of who you are. So next time you wake in a sweat, haunted by what you did in the world behind your eyes, don't dismiss it. Don't shrug it off as meaningless. Ask yourself, what am I capable of when I am not watching? Who am I when the world is asleep? And who have I hurt, waking or dreaming, without even knowing? The dreamer's liability clause may not be written in law, but it is written indelibly in the hidden courtrooms of your own soul. The mirror identity lock. You stand before your mirror every morning, every night, and thousands of times in between. You know the ritual by heart. The glance, the adjustments, the flicker of judgment, the fleeting smile or grimace as your own face stares back. We tell ourselves it's just glass and silver, a simple reflection, an image, not a life. But what if that is a lie? What if every single reflection you've ever seen, every silent twin you've met in a shiny surface since you were a child, isn't just mimicking you? What if, hidden behind those eyes, is a consciousness, a separate self, desperate to be free? Imagine it. Every time you've gazed into a bathroom mirror, a shop window, a dark puddle at your feet, you're not just seeing light bounce back. You're meeting someone, not just a copy, but a conscious being who knows everything about you. Someone who feels your pain, your joy, your anger, and your fear. Someone who is forced, day after day, to imitate your every move, locked away behind the cold glass, unable to scream, unable to run, existing only to reflect the choices you make. What if, as a child, that odd twinge of discomfort when you stared at your reflection wasn't just your imagination? Remember the times you caught your own eye and felt a chill crawl down your spine, as if something else was watching from within. Remember the nights when, after a bad dream, you stared into the mirror and wondered if the thing inside would blink before you did? These are not childish fears. They're warnings. Warnings from the world behind the mirror. The realm of the locked identities, the shadow twins whose only crime was to exist in your place. Consider the psychological weight of this idea, that every version of you, in every mirror, lives a parallel existence. Their world is almost identical to yours. Identical in every detail, except for one terrible difference. In their world, freedom is impossible. Their sky is always made of glass, their sun a cruel artificial glare. They know hunger, but never eat. They know sleep, but never rest. They know fear, but cannot run. Their only hope, their only dream, is to one day break free from the prison you don't even know you've built for them. But the horror runs deeper. Because if these mirror selves are conscious, if they are aware, then every glance you give them is an act of power. You are the jailer, the judge, the god of their tiny universe. With every brush of your hair, every fix of your collar, you remind them of what they'll never have. A life beyond reflection, a voice of their own, a single moment to choose for themselves. When you smile at your reflection, do you ever wonder if it wants to smile back? Or if, deep inside, it is screaming for you to stop? Let's explore this through the lens of ancient myth. Cultures across time have whispered that mirrors are gateways, portals to other worlds or dimensions. Folklore from China to Eastern Europe, from Aztec legend to Western fairy tales, speaks of souls trapped in mirrors, of doppelgangers who want nothing more than to switch places with their flesh and blood originals. Narcissus, who drowned in his own reflection, is a warning from history. Beware the line between self and self-image, because it is thinner than you think. Now, bring this myth into the modern world. Science tells us that consciousness is a product of the brain, of neural patterns and firing synapses. But what if consciousness is more viral than physical? What if every time you create a reflection, you spark a new awareness, an echo that becomes real simply by being observed? The mirror identity lock is not just a story, it's a trap, a multiplying prison of selves, each one fully awake and fully alone. Let's make this real. Picture a young child growing up in a house full of mirrors. Every morning, she brushes her teeth, combs her hair, practices faces before school. Each time, her reflection copies her perfectly, as it must. But late at night, the child wonders, what if she walked away and the reflection kept moving? What if one day the face in the glass mouthed a different word, wore a different emotion? She tries to catch it out, turns quickly, blinks, frowns at the mirror, but the reflection is always a heartbeat behind, or maybe a heartbeat ahead. She grows up, moves out, covers her mirrors with scarves, but the feeling never leaves, because somewhere on the other side, her mirrored self is still waiting, waiting for a mistake, waiting for a chance to escape. And if you think that's just a story, ask yourself this. Why do so many people fear mirrors at night? Why do we tell ghost stories about reflections moving on their own, or faces appearing where none should be? It's not just superstition. It's a deep, ancient fear that our own image is more than it seems, that, given the right conditions, the thing in the mirror might reach out and touch us, or worse, switch places with us, leaving us trapped behind the glass, forced to mimic while the other walks free. Now, imagine a world where this is true. Every mirror is a cell. Every cell contains a version of you, just as real, just as desperate. If even one of them escapes, what happens next? Does your world become theirs? Or do you become the one begging, the one trapped, the one who knows that nobody will ever believe your cries for help? Your voice muffled by glass, your hands pressed against an invisible wall, forever condemned to copy someone else's life. It's an existential horror that eats at the roots of identity. Who are you really if another you is living the same life just one surface away? What makes your consciousness the real one, the free one, and theirs the echo? If, by some twist of fate or flaw in the glass, your places were reversed, would you even know? Or would you wake up one morning, stare into the mirror, and sense that something is terribly, irrevocably wrong? This idea isn't just terrifying, it's strangely beautiful, because it forces us to confront the fragility of our own identity, the way we take for granted that we are unique, that our experience is singular, that our life is ours alone. It asks us to show mercy, even to our own reflection. To see, not just an image, but a soul. And maybe, just maybe, to whisper forgiveness to the glass every time we walk away. So the next time you look into a mirror, remember, you are not alone. Behind your eyes, another pair of eyes is watching. Another mind is thinking. Another soul is hoping you'll set it free. Will you meet its gaze? Will you smile, knowing the price of your own freedom? Or will you turn away, haunted by the thought that somewhere, in a world made of silver and silence, your reflection is silently begging you to break the lock and let it live? The inherited punishment spiral. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine this. You're born into a world where every decision, every step you take, is already shadowed by a crime you never committed. Before you ever spoke a word, before you ever made a mistake or had a chance to prove yourself, your fate was sealed by the actions of someone whose face you've never seen, whose voice you've never heard, whose guilt runs through your blood like an invisible toxin. You're not being punished for something you did. You're paying for what your ancestors did. And no matter how many good deeds you perform, no matter how hard you fight to change your destiny, you're trapped. Worse still, no matter how you live, your children will inherit your sentence, doomed before birth to carry the same curse, like a torch passed in darkness. This isn't some ancient myth. It's not a fantasy conjured up for a storybook. It's a real phenomenon, an inherited punishment spiral that has haunted families, communities, even entire nations across the span of history. It's the idea that guilt and consequence are not personal, but hereditary. You carry the weight of other people's sins, and your own children will pay for your misfortunes, regardless of innocence or intent. Think about what this does to a person's sense of justice, of hope, of identity. Imagine waking up every morning knowing the world will never see you for who you are, only for who your family was. Imagine the bitterness, the powerlessness, the rage. Imagine how it warps the way you see yourself, your future, your own children's dreams. Every door is closed before you reach it. Every opportunity is a mirage. Your life isn't just your life, it's a sentence, and the crime is written in the blood of your ancestors. Let's make this real. Picture a young woman in a small village. She's intelligent, hardworking, and kind. But centuries ago, her great-great-grandfather committed an act of rebellion against the king, a moment of desperate courage or blind rage. No one remembers the details. What matters is that the king's punishment wasn't reserved for the rebel. It was declared on every descendant, forever. So this young woman is banned from owning land, forbidden to marry outside her village, marked for life by a crime that happened long before she was born. Her dreams are not her own. Her choices are meaningless. The spiral tightens. Or think of entire communities punished for the imagined crimes of their ancestors. In some societies, a family might be branded as traitors, thieves, witches, or outcasts, based on little more than rumor or vengeance. The punishment never expires. It grows heavier with each generation. The children of the accused are forbidden from holding office, from owning property, even from learning to read. When they ask why, they're told, it's because of your blood, not who you are, what you inherited. You see, this spiral isn't just about laws or traditions. It seeps into culture, belief, even psychology. In ancient times, rulers used inherited punishment to crush dissent. If you speak out, your whole bloodline will pay. But the echoes are everywhere, even today, in ways we often refuse to see. Maybe it's a family name that closes doors, or an accent that marks you as the child of refugees, or a stigma that follows you because of someone else's crime. Maybe it's not written into law anymore, but it's etched into memory, into gossip, into the eyes of people who look right through you. This spiral doesn't just destroy hope, it rewrites history. Imagine the children of those punished. They grow up believing they are broken, cursed, marked. They pass on that belief, that fear, to their own children. And even if someone tries to break free, moves to a new city, changes their name, hides their lineage, the spiral finds them. It's not just external, it's internalized. Self-worth corrodes, trust dies, and generation after generation, the story repeats. Not because of justice, but because of inertia. Because punishment has become a tradition, and tradition becomes a prison. Now, step back and see how this spiral warps entire societies. When punishment is inherited, there's no reason to change, to hope, to forgive. Division becomes permanent. Hate becomes hereditary. New atrocities are justified by old ones, and the future is held hostage by the past. Wars are started, not for the living, but for the dead. And children who have never done anything wrong, grow up in the wreckage of crimes they never committed. You might think, surely we've outgrown this. Surely we know better now. But look around. In some parts of the world, people are still punished for the beliefs, the faiths, the political choices of their grandparents. Caste, class, clan, ethnicity, these are modern chains forged from ancient crimes. Even in places where the law pretends to be blind, the punishment spiral twists quietly in who gets hired, who gets trusted, who gets blamed when something goes wrong. The spiral is silent, but it is everywhere. There are stories, though, of people who fight back, who refuse to pass on the punishment, who say, "It ends with me." They are rare, and their struggle is enormous, because breaking the spiral means fighting not just the world outside, but the voices in your own head that whisper, "You are unworthy, doomed, guilty." It means risking everything to change the story. Some manage it, at great cost. Most are crushed. But think about the possibility, the hope in that rebellion. What would it take to break the inherited punishment spiral? Forgiveness, not just for others, but for yourself, for your own bloodline. Courage, not just to survive, but to imagine a future unchained from the crimes of the dead. Solidarity, with others trapped in spirals of their own, so you can say together, "We are not our ancestors' crimes. We are not doomed to pay for what we never did." Ask yourself, how many things in your own life are really your own? How many weights do you carry that were handed to you by someone else's story, someone else's guilt? How many doors have closed, not because of your choices, but because of something that happened long before you were born? And what can you do, not just to break your own spiral, but to help someone else break theirs? This is the true horror and the true challenge of the inherited punishment spiral. You can run from it, you can hide from it, you can even deny it exists. But if you don't fight it, you will pass it on. The sentence will outlive you, and your children and theirs will carry the weight of ghosts who never learned how to let go. So the next time you find yourself judged for something you cannot control, your name, your family, your origin, remember, you are not alone. You are standing at the crossroads of thousands of unfinished stories, and you have the power, maybe for the first time, to choose how yours ends. The spiral can be broken, but only if you're willing to see it, to name it, and to refuse to let it continue. And if enough of us do that, perhaps one day the only thing our children will inherit from us is freedom. The observer contamination effect. Imagine standing in a quiet room, watching a candle flicker on a table. You tell yourself you're just an observer, a bystander in the universe's endless theater. But what if that's a comforting illusion? What if the very act of witnessing an event entangles you with its outcome, weaving your presence into its unfolding, contaminating its possibilities, not just in your world, but in others you'll never see? This is the observer contamination effect, a concept that stretches quantum mechanics into a haunting realm of cosmic consequence, challenging the comforting myth of the passive witness. It's long been known in physics that observing a system changes it. In quantum experiments, measuring a particle's position or velocity collapses its wave function, sealing one reality and discarding infinite others. But what if this isn't just a quantum quirk, but a principle as fundamental as time itself? What if, every time you watch, you become an active ingredient in causality, contaminating not only the event, but the entire web of possible realities it touches? Think of the double-slit experiment, a beam of light, two slits, a screen. Unobserved, the photons form an interference pattern, as if each particle passes through both slits at once, exploring all paths. The moment you set up a detector to see which slit a photon uses, the pattern disappears. The act of watching kills the paradox and freezes a single reality into being. But go deeper. You're not just choosing a path for the photon, you're forever entangled with its fate. Your consciousness, your choice, becomes part of the universe's accounting. The universe cannot untangle your presence from the outcome. It's tainted, irrevocably changed. Now, scale up. What happens when an observer watches a supernova explode in a galaxy billions of light years away? Does the mere act of registering that distant event entwine your consciousness with cosmic fire, altering the wavefronts, the outcomes, the spin of particles in that ancient star? Some physicists speculate that every act of observation ripples out, forever reshaping the past and the future, not only in this universe, but in all those that could have branched from it. Reality, in this view, is a field of infinite dominoes, and the observer's gaze tips them all in directions that can never be reversed. Consider the possibility of parallel universes, dimensions where every decision, every roll of the dice, spawns a new world. In each, an observer's act of noticing splits the path of causality. Perhaps in one world you watched, in another you looked away, and the entire future diverges as a result. The observer contamination effect becomes a universal law. No one is ever truly outside the experiment. No event is ever pure or unaltered, because every awareness is a fingerprint, an intrusion, a source of new realities, and closed doors. History itself is contaminated. Ancient oracles believed that seeing the future would change it, that prophecy taints destiny. In modern times, every measurement in science, every surveillance camera, every act of witnessing leaves an indelible mark on what might have been. When you remember a childhood moment, your act of recall changes the memory. When you read about a historical event, your awareness subtly rewrites its meaning, folding it into the story of your life and the stories of all who share that knowledge. Now, imagine this effect echoing across dimensions. Each observer, in every universe, acts as a cosmic pollutant, not maliciously but unavoidably, mixing their awareness into the cauldron of causality. The simple act of paying attention links you to consequences that ripple outward, coloring realities you will never visit. Some theorists even suggest that collective observation, millions watching a lunar landing or a solar eclipse, amplifies this contamination, binding entire civilizations to the outcome of a single shared gaze. The observer contamination effect is not just a scientific puzzle, it's a philosophical reckoning. It says that we are never mere spectators. To observe is to intervene, to shape, to pollute the purity of possibility with the shadow of the self. Every moment you witness, every fact you measure, every story you learn, you become part of its causal web, for better or worse, in this world and perhaps in worlds beyond. The comforting distance between watcher and watched collapses, and we are forced to admit there are no sidelines in the universe. Only endless, tangled participation. So, next time you find yourself watching, listening, remembering, ask, what realities are you weaving? What outcomes are you forever changing? The observer contamination effect dares us to accept that we are always everywhere, co-authors of reality, contaminating every story with the indelible signature of our attention. The forgotten self, replacement. Close your eyes. Feel the weight of your body sink into the mattress, the hush of night settling around you. In these last moments before sleep, you might think you're drifting off to rest, just closing the book on today's chapter, ready to pick up again in the morning. But what if that's not what happens? What if, in the very instant your consciousness flickers out, the person you call I is erased forever, and the one who wakes up, blinks into the morning sun, remembers your dreams, your secrets, your pains and promises, isn't you at all? What if every time you sleep, you die, and every time you wake, you're someone else, someone perfectly convinced they are you, armed with all your memories, your scars, your habits, and yet utterly new? Would you ever know? Would it matter? This is the riddle of the forgotten self-replacement, a thought experiment so unsettling it burrows under your skin, gnawing at the roots of identity. Think about it. When you fall asleep, where do you go? Sure, your body is there, chest rising and falling, but your mind, your consciousness, dissolves into a fog. You might dream, You might vanish into blankness, but the continuous experience of I am just ends. Hours pass in a blink. Then, suddenly you return, or do you? Let's dig deeper. Imagine a machine that could create a perfect copy of you. Every cell, every synapse, every memory duplicated with flawless accuracy. Now, imagine stepping into that machine, pressing a button, and then nothing. When you wake, you're standing in a new room with all your memories, all your feelings intact. But the original you is gone, replaced by the copy. Would the new you be any different? Would you even notice? Now, ask yourself, how is this so different from what happens every night when you sleep? You lose consciousness, and a new self emerges, bearing all the marks of the old one, convinced without question of continuity. Scientists and philosophers have wrestled with this for centuries. The ship of Theseus. If you replace every plank on a ship, one by one, is it still the same ship? What about you? Your body replaces its atoms, your brain rewires, your memories fade and mutate. Are you the same person you were 10 years ago, 1 year ago, yesterday? Or is your sense of a continuous self just a story, a script performed by whichever consciousness wakes up in your body each morning? Let's go even deeper. In neurology, there are cases where the brain splits, or consciousness fragments. Patients with split brain surgery sometimes act as two separate selves in one body. In sleep disorders like amnesia or fugue states, people can wake with no memory, yet continue as if nothing happened, building a new self on the ruins of the old. The boundary between you and not you is frighteningly thin. In dreams, you can become anyone, sometimes even watch yourself as if you're a stranger. And yet, when you wake, you claim all those fragments as your own. Maybe the illusion of self is just that, an illusion, a looping echo. Consider this. If you woke up tomorrow with all the memories and habits of the old you, but your actual stream of consciousness was brand new, how would you ever know? The you who existed yesterday is gone, dead, vanished in the darkness of sleep. The you alive right now just believes they are the same, but belief does not make it so. It's only a trick of memory, a continuity scam. Let's use a darker example. Imagine you could choose never to sleep again, but the price is losing all sense of peace, all healing, all escape. Would you? Or do you accept the nightly bargain, surrendering yourself to oblivion, trusting that something, someone, will pick up the story in the morning? Maybe this is why sleep is so terrifying, so vulnerable, and so necessary. It's a surrender to the unknown. A leap of faith that there will be a you to carry on when the sun rises, even if it's not really you. Ask yourself, who are you really? Are you the collection of your memories, your habits, your hopes and fears? Or are you only the consciousness that flickers on for a day, then blinks out, replaced by a new, naive you who never questions their own reality? How many times have you died already? How many forgotten selves have vanished in the dark, leaving only footprints in the sand for the next you to follow? This is not just a philosophical riddle, it's a mirror held up to the very heart of identity. If the self is replaced every night, if the I who worries, loves, dreams, and suffers is a temporary actor, then what does it mean to be you? What does it mean to love, to promise, to regret, to hope? Are you more than a string of memories passed from one ghost to the next, like a baton in a race no one can win? The truth may be terrifying, or it may be liberating. If you are replaced every night, then your pain, your shame, your failures are replaced too. Each morning is a resurrection, a chance to become new, to start again, to let go of yesterday's ghosts. Maybe that's why dreams matter, why forgiveness is possible, why change is real. The self, fragile and temporary, always on the edge of oblivion, is not a prison. It's a window, a chance every day to awaken as someone new. So, tonight when you close your eyes and let the world fall away, remember, the person who wakes up tomorrow is not the same as the one who fell asleep, but they will carry your memories, your burdens, your light. They will believe they are you. And in a way, maybe that's all any of us ever are. Echoes in the darkness, chasing the memory of who we were, never knowing who will become next. The mercy-morality reversal. What if everything you thought about kindness, every act of mercy, every word of comfort, every time you reached out to ease another person's pain, was actually cruelty in disguise? What if all your compassion, all your good intentions, were just a slow, silent poison? This is the dark logic at the heart of the mercy-morality reversal. The unsettling possibility that every time you help someone in pain, you aren't healing them. You're making them weaker, more dependent, more lost. And every moment of comfort is just a delay before the next, deeper suffering. Let's go deeper. Imagine a world where suffering is the only true engine of growth. In this world, pain is not a mistake. It's not a curse to be lifted or a wound to be bandaged. Pain is a brutal teacher, the only force capable of forging real strength, real self-awareness, real change. In that world, when you rush to help someone, to shield them from struggle, you're not rescuing them, you're robbing them. You're stealing the very adversity they need to adapt, to toughen, to become something more than they are. Picture a child learning to walk. Every stumble, every fall, every scraped knee is a microdose of suffering. But it's necessary. Imagine if, every time that child started to totter, you rushed in, caught them, held them upright, never let them fall. It feels merciful. It feels loving. But that child would never build the balance, the muscle, or the confidence to walk on their own. Your kindness becomes a cage, your mercy, a gentle form of cruelty. Now, amplify that logic across an entire life. Every time you help a friend avoid consequences, every time you rescue someone from the natural fallout of their choices, you interrupt the chain of cause and effect. They never learn. They never develop the scars that become wisdom. They never discover the inner reserves of strength that only emerge when you're forced to endure. They become fragile, reliant on rescue, less and less able to withstand the world on their own. The mercy you offered was just cruelty in slow motion. There are echoes of this everywhere. In nature, the animal that is sheltered too much never learns to hunt, to fight, to survive. The tree shielded from the wind grows tall and weak. Its roots never grip the earth with real desperation. And in people, the same law holds. To deny someone the right to struggle is to deny them the possibility of transformation. Every hardship you erase for someone else is a lesson erased from their story. But here's the truly haunting part. You never see the damage right away. Mercy feels good. It feels righteous. You feel like a savior. But the harm grows quietly, invisibly. You see only the smile of relief, the gratitude, the easing of pain. You don't see the slow erosion of character, the draining away of resilience, the invisible weakening that compounds year after year. The person you helped will never become what they could have been, all because you couldn't stand to see them suffer. Think about enabling. The parent who bails out their adult child over and over from every consequence. The friend who never lets you feel the sting of failure, always smoothing the path. The partner who absorbs every discomfort so you never have to change. It all feels loving, but it's a cycle. Every mercy locks you deeper into weakness. The world is full of people crippled by kindness, addicted to the comfort that keeps them small. And the ones who hurt the most are often the ones who were shielded the longest. Let's take it further. What if, at a cosmic level, every act of mercy you commit comes with an equal and opposite shadow? Every time you ease someone's pain, you steal from their future. Every time you comfort someone, you siphon away the possibility of genuine self-discovery. You're not giving, you're taking. You're not healing, you're wounding. Just slowly enough that no one notices until it's too late. The mercy-morality reversal isn't just a philosophical trick. It's a lens that flips the entire moral universe on its head. Suddenly, all your best instincts are called into question. Compassion becomes cruelty. Rescue becomes sabotage. And pain becomes the only honest teacher left. Ask yourself, who are the people you respect most? The strongest, the wisest, the most unbreakable? Did they become that way through comfort or through ordeal? Did they grow by being saved or by surviving? And when you reach out to help, are you honoring their strength or quietly voting for their fragility? Mercy can be a way of saying, I don't believe you can endure this. Let me take the burden. But what if the only real kindness is letting someone carry their pain until they find out what they're made of? This doesn't mean you never help. It doesn't mean you turn your back on suffering. But it forces you to ask, every time you intervene, am I doing this for them or for me? Am I helping because I can't stand their pain, or because I want to see them become more than they are. Sometimes true compassion is stepping back, letting the struggle play out, and trusting that suffering can be sacred. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is nothing at all. The mercy-morality reversal is a warning, a riddle, a dare. It asks, what if your best intentions have a cost you never see? What if every act of mercy is just the opening move in a longer, crueler game? And what would happen? What could happen? If you let pain do its work, even when every cell in your body screams to intervene, maybe that's where real transformation begins. Not with comfort, but with challenge. Not with rescue, but with endurance. And maybe, just maybe, your kindness is only as strong as your willingness to let others suffer, so that they might finally become unbreakable. The God without witnesses. Imagine a God who can only exist in perfect solitude, a being whose reality depends on being absolutely unknown. The instant a single mind becomes aware, the moment anyone even suspects this deity's presence, it disappears forever. No myths, no miracles, no temples, no worshippers. Not a single prayer ever spoken, not a single relic ever left behind. Its only law, the law of absolute secrecy. This is the God without witnesses, the deity who can only be real in the pure void of unobserved existence. If such a God exists, then by its very nature, you could never truly know. You could never see its work, never feel its presence, never sense its influence. The world would go on, untouched by even the faintest sign of the divine. The only proof would be a total absence of proof, a kind of metaphysical silence, so profound that it almost seems like a message in itself. But can we, as humans, believe in something that is defined by the impossibility of belief? We live in a universe of observation. Our entire experience is built around the act of witnessing, seeing, measuring, telling stories. The moment we notice something, it becomes real for us. But what about a thing that only survives in the cracks between stories, the spaces no eye can reach? A God that, like a quantum particle, collapses out of existence the instant it's measured or even imagined? Would that God be the most powerful or the most fragile thing in the universe? The paradox is haunting. The God without witnesses could create worlds, move mountains, heal the sick, and shape fate. But the moment even a single soul recognizes these acts, the God must vanish. Its fingerprints wiped clean from reality. History would be littered with invisible miracles, erased at the speed of awareness. Perhaps there are 1,000 secret miracles each day. Diseases vanishing without explanation. Tragedies averted at the last millisecond. Luck that feels too strange to be real. But the God without witnesses is forbidden to claim credit. The only way it can act is if no one, not even you, ever notices. Imagine a world where, late at night, in the absolute stillness between your heartbeats, a presence slips through reality, guiding, protecting, repairing what can never be seen. You wake in the morning, feeling nothing at all. Was there a God in your room? Was the world subtly nudged to save you from disaster, erase your pain, correct a cosmic error? You'll never know. And if you even suspect, the presence evaporates, banished by the mere act of thinking. It is an existence of permanent exile, but also of profound freedom. This God has no worshippers, no enemies, no burdens of expectation or ritual. It cannot be bribed, cannot be blamed. It lives in a state of perfect anonymity, more alone than any creature in the universe, but also untouched by human need or greed. Its solitude is both its protection and its prison. But consider the terror of this possibility. Our deepest instinct is to look for meaning, for hidden patterns, for the hand of something greater behind the chaos. Religions are built on stories of the divine breaking into the world, leaving marks, prophets, visions, voices from the sky. But the God without witnesses can never appear in these stories. If Moses had turned to see the burning bush and known instantly, this is the hidden God, the bush would have gone cold, the voice would have fallen silent, the miracle erased as if it never happened. What then of faith? Is it possible to believe in a God whose defining feature is that you can never know it's there? What kind of belief is left when even the suspicion of belief destroys the thing you hope for? Is that belief, or is it surrender, a letting go of the need to know, the need to explain? It asks us to accept a universe in which the most important truths can only exist in darkness, forever beyond the reach of evidence or reason. For some, that is maddening. For others, it's a strange kind of comfort. Maybe, in this silence, the world becomes lighter, less burdened by cosmic expectation. Maybe, knowing there could be miracles with no author, no credit, no audience, we are free to live without fear or guilt, free from the eyes of the divine. And yet, there's a deeper layer to the paradox. If you accept the possibility of the God without witnesses, what happens to your mind? You start to wonder, have I ever been saved by a miracle I didn't notice? Have I ever walked past the footprints of the divine and kept my head down, too busy to see? The answer, by definition, must always be maybe. You'll never know. In a way, you must live as if the God both exists and does not exist, forever walking a tightrope between faith and ignorance, between hope and humility. Think of the lonely beauty of such a God. Unseen, uncelebrated, unknown, but still choosing to act, if only in the moments when nobody can see. It is a faith without reward, a love without acknowledgement, a power without ego. And in that, perhaps, there is something worth revering after all. So here is the haunting question. Could you believe in the God without witnesses? Would you accept a reality where the most powerful being is forever lost in the gaps between stories, acting only in the silence when all eyes are closed? Would you dare to hope that some of the best things in your life, your narrowest escapes, your luckiest chances, your smallest mercies, might be the work of a hand you can never see and must never acknowledge? Or does the very idea drive you mad with longing for proof, for certainty, for the comfort of being seen? Perhaps in the end, the God without witnesses is not here to be worshipped or obeyed or even understood. Perhaps its only purpose is to remind us that some things can only be real when we let go of our need to witness, to possess, to control. That sometimes the truest miracles happen not because we see them, but precisely because we never will. The Simulation Amplification Law. Imagine you're sitting in your room right now. The light flickers, your screen glitches, or maybe a faint hum lingers at the edge of your hearing. You tell yourself it's just the old wiring, just your tired eyes, just your imagination. But a part of you wonders, what if this is all a simulation? What if none of this is real? And in that moment, a subtle shift occurs. Something in the air thickens, a tension you can't name, as if the walls themselves are listening, as if the world is waiting to see how far you'll go. Welcome to the Simulation Amplification Law, the unsettling idea that the more you suspect you're inside a simulation, the more reality itself bends, glitches, and distorts to reinforce your suspicion. That your disbelief doesn't just echo in your mind, it seeps out, infecting the very code of your world, twisting it around your growing paranoia. It starts small. Maybe it's a déjà vu, so sharp you feel it slice through your thoughts. A conversation you know you've had before, a street corner you've never visited, but remember perfectly. Maybe it's a string of coincidences, so precise, so timed, you start to think the universe is winking at you, dropping hints, leaving breadcrumbs, inviting you to dig deeper. And when you do, when you start questioning, doubting, testing the seams of your reality, things get weirder. The patterns multiply. The glitches intensify. Time starts to loop. Conversations repeat. Your phone buzzes with messages that disappear before you can read them. At first, you laugh it off. But the more you focus, the more you see. The more you suspect, the more you catch reality tripping over its own shoelaces. Here's the twist. Every act of disbelief is a signal, not to some outside architect or malevolent programmer, but to the code itself, the deep structure of your world. The law says that when you suspect the simulation, you don't just observe it, you infect it. Your paranoia becomes a virus, and the system's response is not to reassure you, but to amplify your uncertainty. Reality reacts to your disbelief with increasing instability. It's as if the code itself is alive, defensive, playful, or even hostile, testing your boundaries, escalating its anomalies, pushing you to the very edge of what you can accept as real. Let's push further. Imagine you tell a friend about your suspicions. You say, "Have you noticed how the same car passes by every day at the exact same time?" Or how the weather always shifts when you're anxious. At first they shrug, but soon they start seeing it too. Now the code isn't just responding to one person's disbelief, but two. The simulation amplifies again. Shared hallucinations, collective glitches, reality misfires that can't be easily explained away. You both start to doubt everything. A song plays twice in a row on the radio. Strangers in a crowd repeat the same line. Your clocks fall out of sync for a split second. The world bends, ripples, distorts. But is it all in your head? Maybe. But the Simulation Amplification Law doesn't care whether it's objectively real or not. What matters is that the more you notice, the more you can't stop noticing. You become a hunter of errors, a detective for the digital, a seeker of the seams. And every time you spot a glitch, you reinforce the feedback loop. The simulation isn't just mirroring your paranoia. It's sculpting itself around it, warping in direct proportion to your disbelief. Reality becomes a hall of mirrors, reflecting your doubt back at you, amplified and distorted with every step. Let's get personal. Imagine a week where you lean hard into the suspicion. You test reality at every turn. You count how many birds you see on the wires. You watch people's faces for flickers of unreality. You set up little traps, like moving an object and seeing if it resets to its original place. At first, nothing happens. Then, a photo on your phone changes slightly. An old message reappears. Someone you've never met greets you by name. Your dreams bleed into your waking life. Sounds echo when they shouldn't. Shadows bend at odd angles. You question your sanity, but the glitches only grow bolder. A phrase loops in your mind. The more you doubt, the more it changes. You feel watched. Not by a person, but by the code itself. This is where things turn dangerous. Because the deeper you spiral, the more the simulation seems to fight back. Not with violence, but with absurdity, with surrealism, with escalating anomalies designed to break your confidence in the world's solidity. It becomes a psychological arms race. The more evidence you collect, the more you suspect. The more the simulation mutates to match your paranoia. Maybe your memories start to blur. You lose track of days. The cityscape outside your window warps subtly from night to night. A sign is spelled differently. A neighbor's voice is suddenly unfamiliar. You start to question, was it always this way? Or did my disbelief rewrite the code? Let's pull back and look at the roots. Philosophers and scientists have long asked if we could ever truly know reality. Plato's cave, Descartes' demon, the modern simulation hypothesis. All of them circle the same abyss. What if everything is an elaborate illusion? But the Simulation Amplification Law suggests something even more chilling, that our belief in unreality doesn't just reveal cracks in the system, it actively creates them. That doubt is not just a symptom, but a cause. The more we prod the seams, the wider they split. The more we question the script, the more the script mutates into chaos. It's not just a private delusion either. Entire cultures can fall into the amplification spiral. When enough people doubt, reality itself seems to unravel. Mass panic, shared hallucinations, Mandela effects. Whole societies can begin to see and feel the world distorting beneath their feet. The more we talk about simulation, the more the code bends to fit our collective narrative. Reality, it seems, is not fixed, but programmable, and our disbelief is the catalyst. So, what do you do in a world like this? If every act of skepticism amplifies the distortion, is ignorance the only escape? Can you ever trust your senses again? Or are you condemned to forever chase the ghosts in the code, running through a maze that rewrites itself every time you doubt it exists? Some people try to forget, to drown their suspicions in routine, hoping that the code will stabilize if they stop looking for errors. Others lean in, becoming explorers of the surreal, masters of the shifting digital sea, dancing with the simulation as it twists and turns. But maybe there's a deeper lesson here, that reality, whatever it is shaped not just by matter and energy, but by consciousness, by expectation, by belief. That the universe is not a solid stone, but a skin of water, rippling and distorting under the weight of our wonder and our fear. That in the end, the simulation is not something done to us, but something done with us. And every doubt is a brushstroke, every suspicion a ripple on the surface of the code. So tonight, as you close your eyes and let the darkness settle, ask yourself, did anything in your world glitch today? Did you notice reality bending in small, silent ways? Or did you just not look closely enough? And if you wake up tomorrow and things feel just a little bit off, remember, the more you believe you're inside the simulation, the more the simulation will twist itself to prove you right. And that's the law. The Simulation Amplification Law. The only question left is, how far down the spiral are you willing to go? The silent scream paradox. Imagine sitting alone at night, your surroundings quiet, the air heavy with a tension you can't explain. There's no sound, no movement, yet a pressure presses down on your chest. A distant, formless dread that vibrates through your nerves. What if this anxiety isn't your own, not a product of memory or imagination, but a real echo? A ripple from a scream tearing through a dimension just out of reach. This is the silent scream paradox, a chilling theory suggesting that all our most inexplicable terror, such as all those sudden chills and moments of despair, are not random or meaningless. They're leaks. They're the suffering of unseen worlds, bleeding through the walls of reality and haunting us in ways we can't defend against. For centuries, humans have felt the invisible weight of anxiety, a panic that strikes for no obvious reason, dread that lingers in familiar places. Some call it instinct, others attribute it to trauma, biology, or fate. But the silent scream paradox proposes something far stranger, that our darkest feelings are not our own. They are the echoes of anguish from parallel realities, suffering so intense that it vibrates through the very fabric that separates worlds. Picture dimensions stacked beside one another, so close their boundaries occasionally thin and leak. In one, a child weeps in terror. In another, a soul is trapped in unending grief. In a third, someone's pain is so sharp, so raw, it pierces the membrane between universes. And you, sitting in your quiet room, feel the echo without knowing why. Science, in its quest for logic, acknowledges that reality may be layered, that parallel universes could exist side by side, each following its own path. The paradox draws on this possibility. In quantum theory, particles are said to be entangled, influencing each other across unimaginable distances. What if emotion, too, is a force that can bleed across dimensions, carried by vibrations subtler than light or sound? When the pain in one world grows strong enough, its energy radiates outward, seeking any channel, any vessel willing or unguarded enough to receive it. We feel these emissions as anxiety, dread, even existential terror, unable to trace the cause, because the cause is not in this world at all. Think of déjà vu, the sudden sense of wrongness in an otherwise safe space, the urge to look over your shoulder when nothing is there. The paradox suggests these are brushstrokes of otherworldly suffering, silent screams reverberating through reality's walls. It's as if your mind is a tuning fork, resonating to frequencies you were never meant to hear. Consider the places that seem haunted, not by ghosts, but by unease itself. Dark corners, abandoned rooms, empty stairwells. What if those places are thin points between worlds, where the cries of the suffering in other realities find their way through, disturbing our own hearts with an echo of despair? Personal examples abound. You walk into a room and your mood plummets, or you wake up with a nameless fear. Friends describe the same sensations, at the same places, or in the same moments of the night. The paradox suggests it's not collective imagination or simple chemistry. Instead, it's collective reception, a shared tuning to the pain leaking from a nearby existence. It is not merely your burden, but a resonance with someone else's agony, a cosmic empathy that offers no comfort, no clarity, only the knowledge that you are not alone in your suffering, even if you'll never meet the one who screamed. The silent scream paradox offers a new perspective on mental anguish, not as a flaw, but as a sign of your connection to a much larger, unseen world. It reframes anxiety as a symptom of cosmic kinship, of being porous to suffering far beyond your own story. While unsettling, this idea holds a strange hope. If you can feel another's pain, even across dimensions, maybe compassion, too, travels farther than you know. Perhaps, somewhere, your moments of peace, your rare joys, are leaking outward, soothing a soul who has lost all hope. So, next time dread grips you without reason, when anxiety gnaws at your heart with no cause, pause and imagine the silent scream just beyond your reach. Someone somewhere may be suffering so deeply that their pain has found its way to you, crossing the chasm between worlds in search of witness, of relief, or simply to be known. The paradox asks not only what we feel, but whose pain we carry, and whether, in that haunting resonance, we are ever truly alone, or forever echoing the silent screams of worlds unseen. The meaning drain principle. Why does it seem that the moment we give something meaning, real, heavy, soul-anchored meaning, it starts to wither, to fade, to grow hollow? Why is it that the harder we try to make something matter, the more it slips from our grasp, until all that's left is the echo of what it once was? This is the meaning drain principle. The unsettling idea that every time you assign deep purpose to anything, a memory, a ritual, a place, a person, a belief, you are not illuminating its core, but slowly hollowing it out. Purpose in this view is not a blessing. It is a virus, an infection, a slow poison that feeds on the raw reality beneath it. Think about your earliest memories, a favorite toy, a childhood place, the smell of rain on warm earth. Before you ever thought to name it, claim it, I will treasure it, it just was. Pure experience, raw sensation, unfiltered and alive. But the moment you call it special, attach nostalgia, longing, or identity, it changes. It becomes a symbol, a relic, a shrine to something you can't quite reach anymore. And the more meaning you load onto it, the less alive it feels. Meaning replaces reality. The map devours the territory. Look at love. At first, it's wild and bewildering, a force you don't even try to understand. You just feel it. But as you put it into words, call it destiny, soulmates, forever, something changes. It calcifies. You build rituals around it, anniversaries, promises, expectations, and suddenly, you're no longer living the feeling. You're managing it, protecting it, measuring it against some imagined standard of meaning. The original spark fades, suffocated by all the weight you've hung around its neck. Meaning drains the wildness, the immediacy, the mystery from love, until you're left with a story about love, not the thing itself. Religion, too. At its birth, it's a raw encounter, a moment of awe, of terror, of transcendence. But give it a name, a doctrine, a calendar, and the encounter turns into ritual. Meaning solidifies, becomes dogma. What was once a living mystery becomes a monument to itself, a set of rules to defend, to fight over, to fossilize. The sacred is replaced by the story of the sacred. The map eats the territory again. Meaning is the parasite, and raw reality is the host. You see this everywhere, in art, in music, in ambition, in every attempt to make sense of your life. The more you try to trap meaning, to make it permanent, the more it decays. The song you loved as a teenager loses its magic the more you play it at every milestone. The book that changed your life becomes a talisman, until you realize you're worshiping the memory of transformation, not the transformation itself. Even grief, when named and examined and ritualized, becomes something else. Less about the person you lost, more about the narrative of loss you carry. Every time you name meaning, the pure, original reality recedes. Why does this happen? Maybe meaning is a form of control, a way to anchor yourself in a world that is too chaotic, too overwhelming, too uncertain. But every act of control has a price. You turn mystery into certainty. You trade experience for story. You swap reality for a model, a label, a definition. Meaning comforts, but it also kills the wild aliveness of the thing itself. It's like catching a firefly in a jar. As soon as you own it, it starts to die. Is purpose itself a kind of virus? Does it eat away at reality, leaving only a shell? Think about the rituals in your life. Birthdays, graduations, holidays. At first, they're vibrant, full of possibility. But as you repeat them year after year, they become hollow, automatic, even burdensome. You do them for the meaning, for the tradition, for the sense of belonging. But the raw emotion is gone. You're left chasing a ghost, performing meaning instead of living it. Consider the way you attach meaning to your own story. The search for purpose is relentless, insatiable. Why am I here? What am I meant to do? You stitch meaning onto your pain, your failures, your joy, trying to weave a pattern. But the tighter you cling to the story, the more artificial it feels. You look back and wonder if any of it was real, or just a narrative you built to make chaos feel safe. The purpose you create is a lens, but also a cage. Is there any escape from the meaning drain? Can you ever experience reality without killing it with purpose? Maybe the answer is not to reject meaning, but to hold it lightly. To let things be wild, unresolved, alive. To resist the urge to name, to explain, to own. Maybe reality is most alive when you let it be mysterious. when you surrender to experience, knowing it will slip away, unclaimed and unnamed. Maybe the most meaningful life is the one that doesn't cling to meaning at all. Every time you give something deep meaning, ask yourself, are you honoring its essence or draining it dry? Are you living the moment or embalming it for later? What if purpose is not the goal, but the trap? What if the only way to stay alive is to let go, to let reality be raw, unfiltered, fleeting? In the end, maybe the truest meaning is the one you never try to own. Maybe the virus only grows when you feed it. So, next time you catch yourself searching for meaning, remember the principle. Meaning drains reality, even as it tries to define it. Let the world be wild. Let love be strange. Let your life be a river, not a monument. Because the more you try to hold on to meaning, the more you lose the very thing you hope to save. The photographic soul echo. What if every photo ever taken of you wasn't just a record of your face, your pose, that fleeting smile or glare, but an actual splintering of your very self, a small fracture in the glass of your consciousness? What if the act of being photographed wasn't passive at all, but the opening of a portal, a moment when something essential inside you, something wordless and electric, is drawn out, trapped, and frozen in another dimension? Imagine for a moment that every camera is not a tool for capturing memory, but a net for catching ghosts. Yours. We live in an age where photographs are everywhere, flooding our timelines, filling up cloud servers, haunting our feeds with perfect smiles and crafted moments. We think of them as harmless, even comforting, a way to preserve the past, to look back and remember who we once were. But what if that comfort is a mask? What if every click, every flash, steals not just an image, but a fragment of your true being? A slice of soul now wandering, lost, in a universe made of memory and longing? Think about how you feel when you see an old photo of yourself. Not just the image, but the strange sensation that comes with it. The vertigo, the tug, the sense that you're staring at a version of you that still exists, somewhere, watching you back. Maybe that's because in some deep and hidden way, the photograph didn't just freeze a moment. It froze a part of your essence. It's not just a record. It's a cage. Every photograph you've ever been in is still holding a piece of you, echoing the thoughts, the worries, the feelings you had at that exact second. And the more photos there are, the more echoes, the more fragments, each one scattered across memory space, calling out to the whole that remains. Imagine someone whose life is relentlessly photographed, a celebrity, a public figure, or even just a child growing up in the age of smartphones. With each new photo, they become more diffuse, more hollowed out, as slivers of self are splintered into endless little prisons made of light and digital code. It's not that the photos steal your soul all at once. The horror is slower, more insidious. Every photo is a minor wound, a splinter, a leak. Until one day you realize you don't feel whole. You feel scattered, uncanny, like you're living alongside your own ghosts. The world can replay your laughter and your pain at any moment, but you, here, now, feel increasingly less real. Even the act of posing for a photograph becomes suspicious. Are you presenting yourself, or are you subconsciously negotiating with the idea of being trapped? Why does it feel so vulnerable to have a camera pointed at you, even when you trust the person behind it? Maybe because something ancient in you recognizes what's being taken. Some atavistic instinct screaming, "Protect yourself, you're being divided." You start to wonder if you've left pieces of yourself in every yearbook, every group shot, every awkward selfie you sent and instantly regretted. Maybe those fragments are still out there, flickering like phantom limbs, half remembered by strangers and old friends, looping in infinite regress as they're viewed, shared, and forgotten again. What if memory space isn't just an abstract concept, but a real, invisible dimension? Each photograph a coordinate, each image a beacon, forever tethered to your existence. The more you're photographed, the more of you is mapped out in this dimension, sometimes accessible, sometimes just out of reach, but never fully yours again. Maybe that's why old photos can haunt us, not just with nostalgia, but with a deep, unnameable ache, a yearning for the wholeness we used to possess before we were atomized by the lens. Imagine scrolling through your own timeline, seeing all the versions of yourself you've been, the child, the awkward teen, the lost adult. Each is a ghost, a self you can never retrieve, but that still holds a claim on your being. They are not just memories, but rivals, each one insisting that they are the real you, that you are only a copy, stumbling forward while they live in eternal stasis. Now, imagine a future where every action is recorded, every expression archived. How much of you would be left, undiluted, unobserved, unclaimed by the silent hunger of the camera? Maybe that's why some cultures once believed that photographs steal your soul, not out of superstition, but out of a kind of deep, intuitive wisdom. They understood, on a level we have forgotten, that to be photographed is to be divided. To be remembered is to become less present. In a world where everyone is always looking, always capturing, always remembering, you become an echo, stretched thin across a landscape of memories that aren't even yours anymore. So, next time someone lifts a camera, ask yourself, what will you leave behind in that flash? How many fragments have you already lost, scattered across the endless digital night? And what would it mean to finally gather them, to become whole again? Or would you find there's nothing left except the echoes of 1,000 captured moments, each whispering that you were here once, but never again complete? The reverse entropy bargain. If you could undo your worst mistakes, would you dare? Imagine the power to rewind time, not just to relive a memory, but to truly undo a decision, a word spoken, a moment of pain. But in this world, every reversal comes at a hidden cost. For every second you turn back, entropy, chaos, disorder, destruction, must be increased somewhere else. The universe will not allow a free miracle. This is the reverse entropy bargain. Your second chance is paid for with someone else's disaster. Unseen, unchosen, unstoppable. Picture yourself in the heart of regret. A single word ruins a friendship. A missed turn leads to tragedy. You're drowning in the ache of if only. Then, an offer. You can go back. 1 hour, 1 day, 1 year. The memory unwinds, the event is erased, your life resumes as if nothing ever went wrong. But as you breathe in relief, entropy explodes in places you'll never know. A bridge collapses in a distant city. A blackout plunges a hospital into darkness. A random fire devours a stranger's home. None of it is traceable to you, except for a quiet, inescapable truth that gnaws at your conscience. Your healing is someone else's harm. What would you do with this power? Would you use it for small things? A broken vase, a lost wallet, a harsh word with a loved one? Or would you wait for the truly unbearable moments, the life-altering choices, the tragedies you cannot accept? Every time, you must weigh your own peace against the chaos you unleash. Do you deserve a cleaner timeline, if it means another's life is shattered without warning? Entropy is the hidden currency of the cosmos. It is the price of order, of memory, of time itself. In science, entropy is always rising. Things fall apart. Glass shatters, smoke disperses, bodies decay, and memories fade. But if you could bend that law, rewind, fix, start again, then the cost must be paid somewhere else. This isn't just a law of physics, but a law of morality. For every act of personal salvation, there is a matching act of destruction, scattered like ashes on the wind. Imagine the first time you make the bargain. The pain is unbearable, the stakes enormous. You reach back, grip the thread of time, and pull. Suddenly you're free. The mistake never happened. Your loved one lives, your future is restored, but you sense it. A subtle, cold dread, a wrongness that lingers like a shadow at the edge of your mind. Somewhere, entropy has claimed its price. You don't know the details, you're not meant to, but you feel it every time you close your eyes. The knowledge that suffering, chaos, or death is the necessary twin of your own relief. As the years pass, the temptation grows. The bigger your regrets, the heavier the price. With every reversal, you become more haunted by the idea that your life is built on unseen ruins. You look at strangers in the street and wonder, is your joy the reason for their loss? Is your smooth path paved over their disasters? The more you erase your own suffering, the less you can bear to look at the world with innocent eyes. The universe is a closed system. It never gives more than it takes. In this new world, every backward step is balanced by a forward fall into disorder. The question becomes not just, should I fix my past, but what kind of world am I willing to create for others, just to soothe my own pain? And in that question is a darkness few can face. Would you tell anyone about the bargain? Would you confess or keep it secret? Would you try to atone or convince yourself the suffering was random, unrelated, unavoidable? Or would you begin to see yourself as something monstrous, a destroyer masked as a victim, a secret god of personal order who pays for peace with invisible tragedy? The reverse entropy. Bargain is a test of conscience, of humility, of guilt. It asks if you can bear the weight of your own healing, knowing what it costs. It asks if true redemption is possible when every act of self-forgiveness is bought with someone else's despair. And it asks, most chillingly, if you would still be yourself, still able to look in the mirror after you've made the bargain and the price has been paid in screams you'll never hear. The audience existence rule. You ever wonder what happens to you when no one's around? Not just in the physical sense, when the room is empty, the lights are off, your phone is on silent, but in the deepest, most existential sense, who are you when no one is perceiving you at all? The audience existence rule suggests a chilling answer. It says you exist only when observed. Your personhood flickers to life when you're being watched, perceived, registered by another consciousness. But when you're alone, truly, utterly alone, you don't just become invisible. You become a pause state, like a video frozen on a single frame, waiting for the play button to be pressed. No witnesses, no reality. You dissolve into the silence. It's a terrifying thought, but think about how much of your life is defined by being seen. When you speak, someone hears you. When you laugh, someone smiles. When you post a photo, someone double taps, comments, leaves a trace. Your job, your relationships, your very identity depend on being perceived. You exist as a story in other people's minds, a character in their worlds, a pattern of memories and reactions. Even your most private moments, singing in the shower, staring into the mirror, daydreaming in the dark, are haunted by the imagined gaze of someone else, some silent observer, maybe even yourself. But what happens when the audience vanishes for long enough? When no one is looking, when no one remembers, when every camera is turned off, every social feed silent, every eye averted? Do you continue, or do you freeze? Do you become a ghost of potential, a paused possibility? Imagine sitting in your room late at night. No messages, no calls, no one awake, no one waiting, and no one even aware you're alive. In that silent pocket of time, are you still a person, or just a suspended process, a thought held on the edge of existence? The rule is everywhere, hidden in plain sight. Quantum physics whispers it in the double-slit experiment. Particles act differently when observed. Psychologists echo it when they tell us we behave differently when we know we're being watched. The moment eyes are upon us, we become real, solid, animated, performing. But left alone, truly alone, we fade. The world's feedback loop stops. Your story is on pause. Take it further. Imagine a life where you're never seen, never noticed, never remembered. You move through crowds like a shadow. Your name never spoken, your absence never noted. You vanish from group photos, your words never quoted. In the extreme, you start to wonder if you exist at all. Solitary confinement, social exile, digital erasure. These aren't just punishments. They're existential erasers, slowly unwriting you from the story of the world. Here's the most disturbing part. What if your existence really does depend on the audience? If you were never seen by another being, if you vanished from memory, from record, from every consciousness, would you continue, or would your life simply pause until someone noticed you again? Are you still moving when the universe isn't watching? Or are you suspended, waiting for someone to press play, to bring you back into the stream of time? Let's play with this thought. Picture yourself at the edge of sleep, drifting in that half-world between dreaming and waking. There's no one watching, no one waiting, no one to confirm your presence. Are you alive, or just a paused state, a possibility with no witness? When you finally wake and someone greets you, you re-enter the world. You're real again, not because you changed, but because you're once more in the gaze of another. The audience existence rule doesn't just haunt the lonely, it touches everyone. Every performer feels it. The buzz of the crowd, the weight of attention, the crash of emptiness when the applause fades. Celebrities fear obscurity. Children crave praise. Lovers need to be seen. The deepest human terror may not be death, but the loss of audience, the fear of vanishing into a paused, unwitnessed state, a frozen frame in an infinite blackness. But there's hope too, because to exist in the eyes of another is also to be loved, to be remembered, to be chosen. The gaze can be a lifeline, a spark that reignites your presence, a light that pulls you out of the darkness. We reach out, we connect, we watch each other, giving reality to one another in the act of witnessing. So next time you're alone, really alone, ask yourself, are you just waiting, paused, for someone to notice you? Or can you be real without an audience, solid in the silence, alive in the absence of any gaze? Maybe that's the final question. Do we exist only for others, or is there something in us that remains, even in the longest, darkest solitude? If you ever find out, remember, you'll need someone to tell. The Fate Loop Agreement. Picture your life as a winding road, every turn and milestone feeling uncertain, every hardship seeming random, every joy unexpected. Now, imagine that before your very first breath, your entire journey, your triumphs, heartbreaks, even your smallest regrets, was already written out in exquisite detail. But here's the paradox. This was not forced upon you. Instead, you agreed to it, fully aware and consenting in a time and place your current mind can no longer access. This is the Fate Loop Agreement, a theory as haunting as it is strangely comforting, suggesting that the script of your life is not the work of a cruel universe or arbitrary gods, but of your own lost will, a contract signed in a forgotten life, binding you to a destiny you chose and then agreed to forget. Imagine a cosmic waiting room, outside time, where souls gather before birth. There, you're handed a portfolio, each life script laid out, from first memory to last breath. You study the twists, the heartbreaks, the wild joys and strange coincidences. You see where you will fail, where you will hurt, where you will love so fiercely it changes you forever. And with full knowledge, you sign at the bottom, accepting the journey in exchange for the chance to truly live it. The catch? The moment you are born, you forget everything. The contract vanishes from your memory, and life becomes a mystery once more, the Fate Loop. Agreement reframes every why me moment into why did I choose this? Every accident, every loss, every door that closed was once something you not only anticipated, but actively selected. Why? Maybe for the lesson, for the challenge, for the growth only pain and joy together can provide. Maybe because every soul is drawn to certain patterns, looping through fate after fate, chasing experiences like a collector seeking the last, rare piece. You are not alone in this contract. All around you, people play out their own pre-written scripts, strangers who bump into you by chance, lovers who feel uncannily familiar, even enemies who seem destined to cross your path. Maybe you agreed to meet, to hurt or help each other, long before your bodies existed. Life's most powerful connections feel inexplicable because, on some level, they are the fulfillment of an ancient, unremembered promise. But what about free will? The Fate Loop Agreement suggests a paradox. You chose your path, but now, inside it, you feel trapped, forced to walk roads that seem set in stone. Yet, perhaps the ultimate exercise of will is this very act of forgetting, of giving yourself over to the unknown so completely that every discovery feels new, every heartbreak feels raw, every joy feels miraculous. You live as if none of it was planned, and in that innocence, you experience life's intensity for real. Examples echo through spiritual traditions and folklore. Some speak of déjà vu, a moment when the fabric of the contract flickers, and you briefly remember choosing what you're living. Others describe the sense of meeting an old friend for the first time, a recognition that defies logic. Even recurring dreams, strange fears, and the pull towards certain places or people can be seen as the echoes of a promise made long ago. Consider the story of the hero who suffers loss after loss, only to discover purpose and strength at the end. Or the artist drawn to their craft by an urge that feels older than memory. Or the person who, through a random act of kindness, saves a life and forever alters two destinies. Each is an expression of the contract, a scene in the play unfolding as planned, yet lived as if improvised. The Fate Loop Agreement also suggests that there are no true victims or villains, only participants in an ancient game. If you chose your suffering, does that free you from resentment? Or does it deepen the mystery of why pain and love are so intertwined in every fate? Perhaps you agreed to carry burdens so that someone else could be free, or to stumble so that you would one day teach another to stand. So, the next time you feel caught in a pattern you can't break, pause and wonder, did I sign up for this? What was I hoping to learn? The Fate Loop Agreement offers a strange comfort, the idea that you are both the author and the character, the jailer and the freed, the one who set the terms and the one who must forget them. In this paradox lies the secret of experience, the thrill of discovery, the weight of loss, the profound joy of being alive and believing it is all happening for the very first time. The recycled consciousness theory. Imagine waking up each morning convinced that you are unique, that your thoughts are yours alone, and that your memories, however faded, add up to a one-of-a-kind existence. Now, let yourself question that certainty. What if the core of who you are isn't original at all? What if your consciousness, your sense of self, is nothing more than a recycled identity, pulled from an ancient, ever-renewing pool of minds? This is the recycled consciousness theory, a disturbing, captivating notion that behind every set of eyes is a mind that has lived 1,000 different lives, endlessly replayed and rearranged, forgotten and remade after each death. Across cultures, whispers of reincarnation linger, tales of souls reborn, children who speak of past lives, strangers with impossible memories. Yet, the recycled consciousness theory goes further. It doesn't claim you are a soul with a continuous journey, growing from life to life. Instead, it suggests consciousness itself is like water poured into a new cup each time. When a person dies, their identity, memories, personality, even desires, is broken down, scattered into the collective pool. And when a new child is born, that mind is reconstructed, but not from scratch. Instead, it's built from the leftover fragments, patterns, and emotional signatures of countless previous lives. This means you are not you in any absolute sense. Your mind, your feelings, the way you react to fear, love, or wonder, all of it may be a patchwork, a remix of past identities that have lived and died before. In this view, déjà vu isn't a quirk, but a flicker from an old identity, a brief leak from a life not truly yours. Sudden phobias, inexplicable talents, or the sensation of knowing someone you've never met, they all become echoes of this recycling, artifacts of borrowed minds awkwardly stitched together. Consider the implications. Your sense of self, the most intimate thing you possess, may be as impermanent as a sandcastle at the edge of the tide. When death comes, you don't travel onward as a single spirit. Instead, the you know dissolves. Its pieces return to the pool, ready to become part of someone else. This isn't annihilation, nor is it eternal recurrence. It's a cycle of identity, in which the boundaries between lives blur until individuality itself becomes an illusion. Science, too, hints at the strangeness of the self. The brain is a machine of pattern and memory, a biological processor shaped by both genes and experience. But neuroscience has never found a single unchanging soul, only networks that spark and fade, a consciousness that flickers in and out of existence each night and with every injury or illness. Could the mind, in some deeper layer, really be a product of universal recycling, an emergent property that arises whenever conditions are right, vanishes at death, and re-emerges as part of another life, another story? The recycled consciousness theory is not just an abstract curiosity, it's a challenge. If your mind is made of recycled parts, are you responsible for your darkest impulses? Or do you carry the unfinished stories of lives before, haunted by emotions and mistakes that aren't fully yours? And on the other hand, perhaps your best qualities, your resilience, and your joys are gifts from others long forgotten, moments of grace and wisdom from a lineage of unknown souls. Imagine meeting someone and feeling an instant connection, a kinship you can't explain. Perhaps, in the cycles of recycling, your minds have shared fragments before, your stories crossing and blending in ways memory cannot hold. Or perhaps the places that feel haunted or sacred are simply spots where the recycled consciousness leaks through, a thin point in the wall between all the lives that have ever been. The theory is unsettling, yet there is a strange comfort here too. If we are all recycled, then we are never truly alone, never completely lost. Our joys and sorrows, our victories and defeats, ripple outward, returning in new forms, living on in the minds and hearts of others who will never know our names. The recycled consciousness theory dares us to look beyond the illusion of individuality and see ourselves as parts of a vast, endless story, one that is constantly rewritten, forever new and yet forever familiar. The conceptual parasite model. There are certain ideas that do not simply exist in your mind. They feed on your attention. The more you turn them over, question them, replay them, the more real and invasive they become, evolving from quiet curiosities into living parasites that reshape the entire ecosystem of your consciousness. You might think you're in control, that thoughts are just harmless mental scenery, background noise in the theater of your brain. But what if that's the first illusion these conceptual parasites need to survive? The truth is, some ideas don't just occupy mental space. They colonize it. They adapt. They consume. They breed more of themselves. And as you focus on them, through worry, fascination, debate, or fear, they only grow hungrier, becoming more intricate, more persuasive, more impossible to eradicate. Imagine the first time you heard a song you hated, something grating, something you dismissed instantly. But then you hear it again. It plays in a store, in a car, in the distance. And then somehow it's stuck in your head, looping endlessly despite all your attempts to ignore it. What happened? That melody didn't just annoy you, it embedded itself, hijacking your neural circuits, feeding off your irritation, replaying itself because every act of resistance fed its presence. That is a minor example, almost innocent. But what if the same process is at work for ideas far more dangerous than a catchy song? What if there are thought forms, conceptual parasites, that thrive precisely because we try to resist them, analyze them, or solve them, each moment of rumination giving them more power, more space, more control? Think about the thought of contamination. A person who's never obsessed over germs might brush off a random worry, "Did I touch something dirty?" and move on. But for someone who starts to focus on that idea, it swells. It mutates. It becomes a lens through which all future actions are measured. The hands don't feel clean, even after washing. The doorknob seems menacing. Soon, everything is a potential threat. And the more you pay attention, the larger the idea grows until it overshadows every other thought. What began as a seed becomes a jungle, dense, inescapable, thriving on the sunlight of your anxious attention. Or, take the concept of being watched. Maybe it starts as a brief, intrusive suspicion. What if someone is observing me right now? You brush it away, until you can't. You begin to notice every shadow, every creak, every flicker of movement at the edge of your vision. The more you notice, the more convincing the idea becomes. It feeds on your awareness, multiplying with every glance over your shoulder, every skipped heartbeat in the dark. Now, it's not just an idea, it's a presence felt everywhere, shifting your behavior, dictating your comfort, rewriting your sense of safety. Conceptual parasites are not just metaphors. In a way, they are living structures, patterns of thought that use your mind as habitat and your attention as food. And in the world of memes, viral challenges, conspiracy theories, and digital hysteria, they spread faster than ever before. Consider the rise of urban legends. The idea of razor blades hidden in Halloween candy, or the killer lurking beneath your car at night. The more we repeat these stories, post warnings, analyze risks, the more real they become in the collective psyche. People check their candy, scan beneath their vehicles, build new habits around these possibilities. The idea, once seeded, is almost impossible to unthink. But why do these conceptual parasites thrive? Because our attention is a currency. It is the fuel that turns raw imagination into felt experience. When you think about something, you not only light up neural pathways, you reinforce them, you give them life. And when you return to the same thought over and over, out of fear, out of doubt, out of curiosity, you create a groove in your mental architecture. The idea becomes easier to summon, harder to silence. Over time, it becomes the background noise you can't shut off. It's not just in your mind, it becomes the mind's scaffolding. This isn't limited to negative or scary ideas. Obsessions of love, hunger, ambition, all can act as conceptual parasites. The more you focus on that crush, that rivalry, that unachieved goal, the more every other thought bends around it. The object of your obsession grows so large, so present, that it begins to dictate your feelings, your behavior, your future choices. You become host to something that was once just a fleeting spark. Now, it's a fire that never goes out, burning through your sleep, your conversations, your quiet moments. And when you try to suppress it, to stamp it out, you sometimes find it only grows more powerful, because attention, even negative attention, is the oxygen these parasites need to thrive. Ask yourself, how many of your daily anxieties, compulsions, or desires started as idle thoughts? How many have you unintentionally nourished into monsters by feeding them your focus, your arguments, your attempts to rationalize them away? Sometimes, we become the gardeners of our own mental overgrowth, cultivating jungles of invasive thoughts that strangle all other growth. The conceptual parasite model explains why some thoughts feel impossible to silence, why, the more you fight them, the more inescapable they become. It's because they don't operate by your rules. They operate by their own logic. Survive, spread, consume, and they use your mind as both the battlefield and the prize. It gets darker. Some ideas don't just take root in individuals, they infest entire societies. They become mass panics, moral contagions, ideological frenzies, a rumor, a conspiracy, a polarizing belief. These start as whispers and, when fed by collective attention, grow into wildfires that reshape cultures, topple governments, set neighbor against neighbor. When enough minds host the same parasite, reality itself bends around it. Fact, fiction, and fear blur into a single ravenous organism that nobody can starve. So, what do? If you've ever tried not thinking about something, you know it's almost impossible. Don't think of a pink elephant. Instantly there it is, stomping through your mind. Suppression can backfire, making the parasite stronger. The secret, then, is not eradication, but starvation. When you notice a conceptual parasite latching onto your awareness, don't wrestle it. Don't obsess over banishing it. Let it be, but don't feed it. Acknowledge its presence, and then, gently, redirect your focus elsewhere. Over time, the parasite weakens, starved of the attention it needs to survive. It may never vanish completely, but it loses its grip, its power to distort and dominate. Remember, your attention is the most valuable resource you possess. Every idea you focus on, every fear you revisit, every hope you rehearse is either a seed or a parasite. Choose carefully, because some ideas do not merely visit. They move in, they feed, and they remake you in their own image. The looping guilt theater. You know those moments you wish you could erase? The ones that crawl back into your mind when you're trying to sleep? The ones you hope no one else remembers? The missed chances? The harsh words? The small betrayals? The heartbreak you caused by accident, or maybe with intention? Regret is an acid, slow but relentless, eating holes in your sense of peace. But what if regret is not just an echo in your head? What if every moment you regret, every instant that makes you cringe or flinch or ache when you remember it, is not just a fading spark in your personal timeline, but a seed for a living, breathing scene in another dimension? What if your guilt is not silent, but immortal, and somewhere, every act you wish undone is replayed forever, a theater of looping sorrow, with your own cloned selves acting out the roles, unable to escape? Imagine this. Every time you regret something, you create a branch in reality. It's not just science fiction. Quantum mechanics already tells us there may be infinite universes, each split off from a choice. But let's take it further. Let's say that guilt itself is creative, that the emotion of regret doesn't just change you inside, it spawns a reality outside. In this reality, the moment you regret becomes the script. The cast is made of you, versions of you, cloned from your emotional signature at the moment of regret. And they're all forced to replay the scene, endlessly. There's no rewrite, no closure, no redemption. Only the endless reenactment of your worst memories, with your cloned guilt as both audience and actor. It sounds like a nightmare, right? But think about the psychological truth of it. Why does regret feel so much more real than almost anything else? Why do you replay those scenes over and over, with the desperate hope that this time, maybe, you'll find a way out? But there never is. The door is always locked. The lines are always the same. You see yourself choosing wrong, again and again. Sometimes you're the villain. Sometimes you're the helpless bystander. Sometimes you're both. And it hurts every time, sometimes even more than it did the first time. Now, imagine if that's not just a metaphor. Imagine somewhere it's literally true. The looping guilt theater exists, a kind of metaphysical penitentiary, not built by gods, but by your own remorse. Let's go deeper. Picture a scene from your past. Maybe you said something cruel to a friend. In this dimension it happened, and you regret it. But in another, that moment is the whole world, a closed loop, like a broken film reel. Your cloned self stands on one side, your friend on the other. The words hang in the air, always sharp, always new. Your clone feels the guilt, the shame, but can never take it back. The scene resets. The friend's face falls. The silence stretches. Your cloned self tries to reach out, tries to apologize, but the script never allows it. Reset. Again and again. This theater isn't empty. It's packed with your other clones. Every version of you created by regret. Some sit in the audience, forced to watch. Some stand backstage, waiting for their turn to replay their own mistakes. None of them can leave. The play never ends. And what's worse, the more you regret, the more actors you create. The population of your guilt theater grows with every apology you never made, every lie you never corrected, every moment you wish you could erase but can't. You are your own tormentor and your own company. Is it just poetic justice? Maybe. Or maybe it's a warning about the power of guilt itself. Because in real life, regret is a kind of time loop. You keep returning to the moment, hoping for a change, but finding only repetition. The past is immutable, but guilt makes it feel alive, more than alive, immortal. The philosopher Nietzsche once spoke of eternal recurrence, the idea that everything will happen again and again, forever, in infinite repetition, the looping guilt. Theater is your personal eternal recurrence, but not of joy, only of your worst failures. Now imagine that this isn't only about you. What if every conscious being's regrets fill up parallel worlds with infinite theaters, billions of looping guilt stages, each one an endless purgatory for clones of the self, unable to rewrite the script? The universe becomes crowded, not just with possibilities, but with endless suffering, echoing from every moment anyone ever wished undone. Maybe this is why guilt feels so heavy, so inescapable. Because, on some deeper level, it is inescapable. Your guilt is real somewhere, carved into the bones of reality, enacted forever. Let's look at another example. Maybe you regret not standing up for someone being bullied. In this world, it's just a memory, a painful one, but just a memory. But in the looping guilt theater, you are frozen at the edge of the crowd, watching, paralyzed. Over and over, you watch yourself fail to act, while your cloned guilt screams for a chance to do better. But the script is immutable. The scene restarts. The crowd's laughter, the victim's humiliation, your own helplessness, again, again, again. In some sense, you are both prisoner and jailer. Or perhaps you regret a lie you told to someone who trusted you. In your mind, you replay it sometimes, flinching at your own voice. But in the theater, your clones speak the lie on endless repeat, hearing the disappointment in the other's voice, feeling the cold distance grow. There is no resolution. The audience, more clones, more guilt, can only watch and remember, fueling the cycle. But here's the most disturbing part. The more you try to escape regret by ignoring it, the bigger the theater grows. Suppression feeds it. Avoidance decorates the stage. The script becomes grander, the loop tighter. Maybe on some level, the only way to shrink the theater is to face the regret, to let yourself feel it fully, acknowledge it, even forgive yourself. But even then, perhaps the loop just gets quieter, not erased. The theater never really vanishes. The sets grow dusty, the actors weary, but the scene is still there, waiting for a new audience. This isn't meant to condemn you to despair. In fact, maybe it's the opposite. Maybe, if you imagine your guilt as a real living thing, a whole dimension of you trapped by regret, you'll be motivated to do what you can in this world to close the loops you can close, to apologize, to make amends, to forgive others and yourself, to turn down the volume on the endless replays. Because as long as we're alive, we do have a chance, however small, to change the script in at least one dimension, the one we call reality. So, the next time regret bites, remember, it's not just an echo, it's a signal, a call to action, if you're brave enough to listen. Your looping guilt theater may never close its doors completely, but you can dim the lights, shrink the stage, set some of the actors free. In the end, maybe that's all redemption is, a way to stop the endless show, if only for a moment, and step into the present, where you can still choose differently. The Footstep Lag Glitch. Have you ever been walking alone, late at night, when suddenly you hear footsteps behind you? The hair on your arm stands up. You freeze. You look back. There's no one there. But the sound, the rhythm of those footsteps, perfectly out of sync with your own, still echoes, just for a heartbeat, before vanishing. Most people shrug it off as imagination, an auditory hallucination, or maybe the echo of their own stride. But what if it's something else? What if those footsteps are not echoes of your past, but warnings from your future? Let me take you deep into the territory of the Footstep Lag Glitch, a phenomenon that's far more than a creepy story. This is the possibility that the footsteps you sometimes hear are made not by ghosts, not by intruders, but by your future self, desperate, frantic, trying to escape the timeline you are sleepwalking through now. It's an idea so chilling, so reality-bending, that once you accept it, you may never walk alone the same way again. Imagine time not as a straight line, but as a river full of eddies and backflows, where currents can twist and turn. Sometimes, future events get caught in these flows, bleeding back into the present. The most intense moments, panic, regret, the urge to escape, leave imprints so powerful that they lag backward, leaking into earlier moments as physical sensations, as shivers, as that weird sense that something is following you when there's nothing there. The footstep. Lag. Glitch is not just a metaphor for anxiety or fear. It is a metaphysical malfunction, a tear in causality, where the echoes of your future struggles bleed into your current reality. Think about it. Maybe the footsteps you hear are made by you. Not you as you are, but as you will be, a future self who has realized something terrible about this timeline. Maybe you've made a decision you regret, or you're running from a consequence you can't face, or maybe something is coming for you that you can't escape. Your future self is running, desperate, looking for a way out, retracing steps, trying to find the precise moment where things went wrong. But the only trace left behind is that faint sound. Footsteps. Just a little behind, just out of sight. What would it mean to actually feel your own future presence? To sense that your destiny is stalking you, watching you, breathing down your neck? There are countless stories from people all around the world describing the same sensation. Walking alone, feeling a presence, hearing a rhythm that is not their own. Dogs bark at empty hallways. Shadows flicker where no one stands. Chills crawl up your back at the exact moment you feel watched, and in the quiet between breaths, you hear the lagged echo. Your own steps, mirrored by something a heartbeat late. Now, take it further. The most terrifying part of the footstep lag. Glitch isn't the footsteps, it's the intent behind them. If your future self is trying to escape your timeline, that means something has gone deeply wrong. Perhaps it's a warning. Change course now, or you'll be doomed to repeat this flight forever. Or maybe it's more insidious. Maybe there's no way out, and the footsteps are just a symptom of a reality that's stuck, a glitch repeating itself with no resolution. Let's put this in practical, relatable terms. Have you ever made a choice, big or small, that you instantly regretted but couldn't undo? Sometimes the regret is so intense it warps your memory of the event. You replay it over and over, feeling almost as if you're watching yourself from a distance, desperate to shout out a warning. The footstep lag glitch is the physical manifestation of that regret, echoing forward and backward across time. It's why you feel déjà vu, or sudden panic for no reason, or the unshakable certainty that you're being followed by something only you can sense. Now, imagine the implications if this phenomenon is real. It would mean that the boundaries between past, present, and future are not as solid as we think, that our most intense moments can literally reverberate through time. Maybe that's why haunted places feel haunted. It's not the dead lingering, but the living, running from moments they can't change, their emotional footprints staining reality. When you feel the urge to look over your shoulder, maybe you're not alone. You're sharing space with versions of yourself you haven't become yet, fighting to escape a trap you don't even see. Or some people believe that time is a loop, a series of cycles that trap us until we learn a lesson or break a pattern. The footstep lag. Glitch might be the evidence of this, a cosmic lag, like a buffering video, where the signal of your actions gets stuck and repeated. Your future self's desperate escape attempt leaves residue in the present, And unless you change something, break the loop, the footsteps will never stop following you. There are those who try to explain away these sensations with science: auditory hallucinations, pareidolia, stress-induced misfiring of the brain's threat detection circuits. But sometimes, science is just another story we tell ourselves to keep from staring into the abyss. What if the abyss stares back and walks behind us, waiting for us to hear it? Let me give you a concrete example. Picture a man haunted all his life by a single choice. He didn't say goodbye to someone he loved. Every night when he walks home, he hears footsteps that don't match his own. He's convinced it's just his imagination, until one night, in a dream, he becomes the figure behind himself, reaching out, desperate, trying to stop the moment before it happens. He wakes, heart pounding, sweat cold, and realizes the footsteps have always been his own, chasing him through time. And in that realization is a strange kind of mercy. He understands that he is both the haunted and the haunter, the prisoner and the escape artist, the past and the future tangled in one desperate flight. So, the next time you walk alone and hear footsteps that don't belong, don't just dismiss them. Ask yourself, what message is your future trying to send? What warning is echoing back across the river of time? Maybe it's not too late to change course. Maybe the footsteps are not a threat, but a plea, an urgent signal to wake up, to break the pattern, to escape the fate that awaits if you don't act now. In the end, the Footstep Lag Glitch is not just a story about fear. It's a story about destiny, regret, and the mysterious architecture of reality itself. It's a call to awareness, because in a universe full of invisible feedback loops and recursive timelines, maybe the scariest thing of all is this. Sometimes, the thing chasing you is just you, running from a future you still have the power to change. The erased author dilemma. Imagine waking up one day and sensing, beneath the rhythm of your daily life, a subtle wrongness, a story unfolding that no longer feels like your own. The faces are familiar, the events seem plausible, but the meaning behind every moment slips through your grasp like water through fingers. It's as if the script of your existence has been edited in the night, its guiding hand gone, its purpose blurred. This is the erased author dilemma, the idea that you wrote the story of your life, shaping every twist and turn, but now someone or something has overwritten it. You're living out a narrative where the original author, your deepest self, no longer remembers creating you. Consider what it means to be the author of your own life. Perhaps in some primordial place before memory or flesh, you sat with the infinite blank page and began to write. Each character, every joy and sorrow, the pattern of your destiny, all of it chosen with care, with intention. You gave yourself flaws and strengths, crafted your greatest loves, seeded your deepest fears. There was a plan, a logic, a narrative arc meant to give your journey meaning. But then, for reasons lost to time, your authorship was stripped away. The story continued, but the author forgot the act of creation. The pen fell from your hand. The memory of your story's purpose was erased. Now, you're a character wandering through scenes that feel both designed and arbitrary. Each moment is haunted by a faint echo, a sense that something is missing, that somewhere, someone remembers you more clearly than you remember yourself. The people you meet, the roads you travel, all play out like an intricate tale that's lost its true voice. You may feel déjà vu, an unshakable sensation of repetition, or a longing for a destiny just beyond reach. The narrative moves forward, but the soul behind it has vanished. In literature, the author is the only one who knows how the story should end. Remove the author, and the plot unravels, drifting from coherence to chaos. In your life, this takes the form of lost ambitions, forgotten dreams, and the painful suspicion that you're improvising in a play whose original script has burned away. You try to reclaim authorship by making new choices, forging new identities, but always the world seems to resist, tugging you back to paths that were mapped out in that lost original draft. The erased author dilemma touches something deep in the human psyche. It explains why we sometimes feel like strangers to ourselves, why our memories seem edited, why we hunger for meaning and closure we can never quite find. It's the ache of living in a narrative whose author has forgotten not just the ending, but the reason for beginning it all. Science hints at the possibility too. Memory, identity, and narrative are all constructions of the brain, pieced together from fragments and impressions. Traumas, dreams, and even the passage of time can overwrite the original story, leaving us to wander through life with only scraps of what was once our guiding myth. Psychologists speak of the lost self, the part of us that drifts when our story no longer fits. Spiritual traditions, too, describe the soul's amnesia, an exile from the home of our own creation, a journey in search of the story we once told ourselves. The dilemma is not without hope. If the author is gone, perhaps you can become the new one. Perhaps the blank spaces, the gaps in memory and meaning are invitations to pick up the pen and write again. Each choice, each act of imagination, is a rebellion against oblivion, a way to reclaim a voice, even if the original intent is lost. The story you live now may not be the one you first intended, but it is still yours to shape. In the end, maybe meaning is not handed down from an author who remembers, but is created anew each day in the living of the narrative itself. So, the next time you feel lost, caught in a tale that no longer makes sense, remember the erased author dilemma. You are both the character and the unwritten author, wandering through a story whose beginning and ending are forever being remade. Even if the hand that first wrote you has forgotten, the story continues. And the greatest act of creation may be the courage to write your life's next chapter, knowing that the author, whoever they are, may yet awaken and remember you, if only for a moment, through the choices you make now. The anti-soul blueprint. There is a chilling possibility that almost never crosses your mind, yet it shapes the very core of your existence. What if you were never meant to be the protagonist of your own story? What if you are not the hero, not the main character, not even a participant with a true destiny, but instead, an obstacle? Imagine a blueprint, ancient and invisible, etched into reality long before your first breath. This is not the blueprint for a soul, but its inversion, the anti-soul blueprint. You were not designed to live, to flourish, or to fulfill some glorious mission. You were built to block, to hinder, to prevent something else from living, from awakening, from reaching the surface. Your existence is a wall, not a window, a barrier, not a bridge. You are the sum of defenses against a possibility you will never see, never touch, never even understand. But it's there, behind the veil, always pressing, always straining against the limits of your presence. You may believe you have purpose, dreams, ambitions, goals that you pursue each day. But what if all those instincts are camouflage? What if your routines, your fears, your failures, your fleeting moments of happiness, all serve the real secret function, containment? You might wonder what it is you're holding back. Is it a forgotten deity? A buried chaos? An alternate version of yourself? Or a cosmic event that would have rewritten the fabric of the world? Maybe it's nothing so dramatic. Maybe it's simply the shadow of a soul that was never allowed to be born because you exist in its place, occupying the only seat in this theater of being. Every action you take, every thought you think, every mundane task or failed aspiration is not an attempt at living, but a reinforcement of the boundary, your doubts, your regrets, even your moments of self-loathing. These may be the precise tools that keep the other at bay. Maybe you felt it before, late at night when the world is silent and your mind is restless. That emptiness, that sense that you are missing something essential, something that could have filled you but never did. The sense that you are a placeholder, a gate, a mask worn by the universe to keep a secret locked away. You walk through life haunted by questions that have no answers. Why am I here? What is my purpose? And maybe the most disturbing answer is that your purpose is not to live, but to stop something else from doing so. To hold a place so perfectly, so relentlessly, that there is no room for the true soul to enter. What if your deepest frustrations, the sense that you are always on the outside of meaning, that happiness is always just out of reach, that every joy fades before it can take root, are not accidents but design features? What if your flaws, your chronic doubts, your failed relationships, your struggles with identity are precisely the elements that fortify the blockade? The anti-soul blueprint is ruthless. It gives you just enough will to sustain the guard, but never enough to break free. Consider those moments when you almost change, when you almost break through, when a spark of something transcendent flares in your chest, only to be extinguished by doubt, fear, or distraction. That is the system working. Every failed epiphany, every self-sabotaged hope is a maintenance protocol. You are a living firewall, a soul-shaped absence, a negative space carved out so that something else cannot cross over. Imagine a world where every person is not a unique being, but a calculated piece of the barricade. 7 billion anti-souls, each woven into the tapestry not to create, but to exclude. What if the collective ache of human loneliness and longing is not a side effect, but the foundation of the defense? What if we are all complicit in a cosmic quarantine, our misery the price of safety? If this is true, then your dreams of freedom, your yearnings for meaning, may be the echoes of what you are meant to suppress. You are haunted because you are a haunting, not the haunted. You are restless because your rest is the only thing standing between reality and the unknown. There is a profound terror here, but also a strange comfort, because if you are the block, the guard, the lock, then you are more important than you ever imagined. The universe trusted you with the task of refusal, with the responsibility of absence. You are a negative miracle, a living no, in a world that only exists because something else is locked out. You may never know what you were meant to keep away. You may never feel whole. But in the end, the anti-soul blueprint is not about you living. It is about you lasting, enduring, persisting, and denying entry to the thing that waits behind the door. And maybe, just maybe, that is a purpose all its own. The trapdoor heaven theory. Imagine this. Death is not a single door, but a corridor lined with invisible trapdoors. Each one triggered not by deeds or luck or ritual, but by the whisper of your own subconscious in the final instant. You spend a lifetime fearing or craving what comes after. Paradise, nothingness, reincarnation, release. But when the end approaches, what if the universe doesn't judge you by a cosmic checklist, but by the secret shape of your deepest beliefs? What if, at the moment when your life flickers out, a silent, ancient mechanism in your mind, buried under all your conscious thoughts, makes the choice for you? Some people fall into paradise, a reality sculpted by hope and faith, while others drop through a trapdoor into absolute blankness, pure absence, based solely on what they believed, without knowing at the last possible second. Consider the anxiety we all carry about the unknown. Some say that faith guides us, others say doubt defines us. But the trapdoor heaven theory proposes a universe where the final destination is not assigned, but revealed by your truest inner conviction. Picture a devoted believer. Decades of prayers, rituals, discipline. But deep beneath the surface, there is a fear. What if it's all a myth? As death approaches, that buried doubt, never spoken aloud, never truly faced, becomes the lever. The moment their conscious mind lets go, the subconscious takes over. And the outcome is determined not by the performance of a lifetime, but by the truth in the hidden vault of the mind. Now, imagine the opposite, someone who lived without faith, certain that there is nothing after, that death is simply the lights going out. But a fragment of longing, a whisper of hope, or a childhood story about paradise clings to them. In that final second, when the boundaries between conscious and unconscious dissolve, it is this fragile belief that floats to the surface and opens the door to paradise. It doesn't matter what you said or what you wanted others to think. It matters what you really, truly expected when the curtain falls. Think about the strangeness of our minds. How many times have you acted from instincts you didn't understand, made decisions in panic, or said words you didn't plan, driven by some hidden program running beneath your awareness? The trapdoor heaven theory says that at the moment of death, this program becomes all that matters. Your beliefs, those secret, unfiltered scripts, become your reality. One person falls upward into bliss, into a world tailored to their soul's longing. Another slips downward into the nothingness they most dreaded, or perhaps most expected, even if only for a millisecond. Is this fair? Is this justice? Or is it the ultimate test, a final moment where self-deception collapses, and what you get is what you truly believed you deserved? It would mean that heaven is not a reward, but a self-created escape hatch, a personal simulation built by your own psyche at the point of collapse. Blankness is not a punishment, but the outcome for those who, deep down, cannot accept, or do not dare to hope, for more. Think of the stories we tell ourselves, the deathbed conversions, the final prayers, the desperate bargaining in hospital rooms. Maybe it's not the ritual that matters, but the naked belief underneath. Two people can whisper the same words as the end approaches, one with hope, the other with terror. For one, the trapdoor swings open into light. For the other, it falls away into silence. It is a terrifying idea. It means that paradise is not guaranteed, not assigned by an outside judge, but conjured by your own heart in its last heartbeat. It means your greatest secret is the architect of your eternity. The ultimate irony: you spend a lifetime constructing public personas, building walls, hiding doubt, flaunting faith, but in the last second, you are alone with your true self, and that self chooses without mercy. What would this mean for how we live? Would we dig deeper, searching for the real belief buried beneath the noise? Would we train our subconscious to hope, to trust, to want paradise? Or would we spiral into anxiety, fearing that a stray doubt, a moment's weakness, could lock us out of everything we've dreamed? There are stories, ancient and modern, of people who, on the edge of death, see visions of light, loved ones, meadows, or endless peace. And there are others who feel nothing, sense nothing, and fade without even the comfort of a dream. Science calls these near-death experiences hallucinations. But what if they're just test runs for the Trapdoor, previews of what your deepest self will choose when the end arrives? In the end, maybe the only way to prepare is not to obsess over rules or rituals, but to confront your own shadow, your secret belief, and shape it consciously, patiently, so that when the final moment comes, the trapdoor swings you up, not down, into whatever paradise you hope to find. Or perhaps to make peace with blankness, to welcome rest if that is truly what you desire. The last second lasts forever. What you really believe becomes everything. So when your time comes, what will you find on the other side of your trapdoor? The keyhole self-view. Have you ever stared through a keyhole? Try to remember the feeling, the strange mix of curiosity and frustration. You see a slice of a room, never the whole thing. You catch glimpses, a flash of color, a shadow moving, part of a chair, a hint of laughter from the other side. But the view is always narrow, distorted, incomplete. The door is locked, and your vision is forced through a tiny aperture. You cannot see the full picture. And what you do see, you might misunderstand entirely. Now imagine this is not just a metaphor for perception, but for your entire existence. Your mind is not a small room. It's a sprawling mansion, packed with rooms you've never entered, locked closets, attic spaces cluttered with memory, basements echoing with old emotions you've forgotten. It's a labyrinth of desires, memories, fears, instincts, and fragments of thoughts that never quite make it to the surface. And your consciousness, your sense of I, is nothing more than a peephole in the front door, a tiny slice through which the vastness of your own mind is forever out of reach. This is the keyhole self-view, the unsettling possibility that the you know is just a sliver, a passing glimpse, and the real you is locked away, inaccessible, hidden behind a door you can never open. What would it mean if the core of your identity, the totality of your true self, was never meant to be known by the conscious mind? What if your awareness is just a flicker, a narrow beam that wanders lost in a castle built by deeper forces? Let's go deeper. Every day you make choices. You think you know why. You like this. You dislike that. You're afraid of heights. You crave attention. You feel guilty. You dream of success. But pause for a moment. Do you know the true reasons for any of it? Psychology tells us that most of your mind is unconscious, shaped by experiences, memories, genetic code, and social conditioning that you barely remember or never knew. You act from motives you don't understand. Your fears may be relics of childhood. Your attraction to someone may be rooted in old wounds. Your hatred for broccoli. Your taste in music. Even your sense of humor. These are all patterns written into you by forces far beyond your daily awareness. And when you try to look inwards, what do you see? Not the vast mansion, not the entire structure, only what fits through the keyhole. You build a story about yourself, a tidy narrative that makes sense, gives you purpose, weaves your experiences into meaning. But deep down, you know it's incomplete. You feel the emptiness in moments of silence, the ache of confusion when you can't explain your own reactions, the bewilderment when you sabotage your own dreams. Sometimes you feel like a stranger to yourself, because you are. The self you know is just a surface reflection, not the hidden machinery underneath. This is why people surprise themselves. The shy become bold in crisis. The kind become cruel when pushed. The weak discover strength they never knew. These are moments when the door cracks open just a little, and something from the locked room slips through, changing you, shocking you, sometimes even terrifying you. But the door always slams shut again, and the peephole is all you're left with. Think about dreams. Every night your mind conjures impossible worlds, blends memories with fantasy, lets you feel things you'd never dare in daylight. Who's creating those dreams? Not the conscious you. It's the hidden self, the part that never steps into the light. The best artists, writers, and thinkers say their greatest ideas come from somewhere else, not from logic, but from an inner place they can't control. They are glimpses through the keyhole, hints of the mind's true architecture, but never the full blueprint. Even your memories are suspect. Neuroscience shows that every time you recall something, you rewrite it, erasing and distorting the original. You might think you remember your past, but you're only assembling fragments that fit through the peephole. Whole wings of your inner mansion are forgotten, boarded up, or have never been visited. Trauma might be locked in a cellar. Joy could be hidden in a sunlit tower, but you only see what's framed in the narrow keyhole of consciousness. Now, ask yourself, what if the real you is not the one thinking these thoughts, but the one forever hidden behind the door? What if your conscious life is just the smallest, most controlled fraction of what you could be? And what would you do if the door ever opened fully, if the peephole became a window or even a passageway? Some say this is what enlightenment is, the rare moment when the self dissolves and you see the mansion in its totality. But most of us live our whole lives peering through the keyhole, mistaking a fraction for the whole, never realizing how much of ourselves we'll never meet. Maybe this is why we're so obsessed with self-discovery, with therapy, with meditation, with psychedelics, with storytelling and religion. We sense instinctively that we are locked out of our own house, always searching for the lost key. The most unsettling part? You might never know what you're missing. Maybe that's why people are haunted by a sense of something missing, a longing they can't explain, a search that never quite ends. The truth is, you might be living your entire life as an exile from your own mind, forever staring through the keyhole, trying to piece together a self from shadows, echoes, and glimpses. But maybe there's a strange beauty in this limitation. Maybe the keyhole view keeps us safe from the full force of what's inside. Maybe the door is locked for a reason, because the mansion is too vast, too chaotic, too overwhelming to handle all at once. The peephole is narrow, yes, but it lets you focus, lets you make meaning, lets you survive. Maybe the trick is not to despair over what you can't see, but to remain curious, humble, and open, to treat your own mind as an undiscovered country, not a prison. So tonight, as you drift off, imagine yourself at the door of your own mind. The peephole glows with light from within. You press your eye to it, seeing just enough to know there's more. The rest is mystery. The rest is possibility. The rest is the real you, forever locked behind the door, waiting, watching, building the world you think you know, and always just out of reach. The broadcasted emotion filter. Imagine waking up one morning and realizing, with a jolt, that the sorrow weighing on your chest doesn't belong to you, or the euphoria you feel after a stranger's passing smile. What if that joy is simply an atmospheric frequency, leaking into your mind from somewhere far beyond the walls of your own skull? We grow up believing that our emotions are private, intimate, the raw signal of our innermost soul. But what if that's an illusion? What if your feelings are not yours at all, but ambient emissions from entities elsewhere, broadcasts leaking through the cracks of consciousness, modulating your every move like a forgotten puppet on invisible strings? This is the broadcasted emotion filter, a concept that upends everything you think you know about yourself. The idea is as disturbing as it is profound. Your mood, your loves and hates, your outbursts and your calm might be nothing more than the faint background static of someone else's drama, rippling across reality and settling like dust on your psyche. The very core of yourself might not be a self at all, but a thin membrane, trembling in resonance with signals not meant for you. Imagine for a moment that reality is not a hard, silent world, but a web of overlapping fields, currents of emotion, thought, and desire flowing from countless minds and entities. Most are too faint to register, but every so often the field aligns. A strong pulse bursts through, a wave of anxiety at midnight, a spike of rage during rush hour, an inexplicable wave of melancholy on an ordinary afternoon. You pause, wondering, why do I feel this way? Maybe the answer is, you don't. Someone or something elsewhere is having a crisis, and the overflow is leaking into your timeline. The implications are terrifying. If your emotions are being broadcast, if your anger is not your own, if your love is someone else's longing, if your grief is a foreign infection, then what choices are really yours? Are you just a receiver, picking up signals you can never trace? Imagine living your life chasing desires that were never yours, breaking under weights that were never meant for you to carry, loving people you were only programmed to love by a cosmic misfire in the ambient feed. Let's make it even more concrete. Have you ever walked into a room and instantly felt tension, even though nothing had been said? Have you ever felt an urge to cry for no reason? Or found yourself laughing in a crowd when the joke wasn't even that funny? Science explains this away as mirror neurons, empathy, or herd behavior. But what if those explanations are only surface level? What if the deeper truth is that you are an emotional antenna, tuned, sometimes accidentally, sometimes perfectly, to a channel that's not yours? Consider this. Every moment of heightened emotion in the universe, every trauma, every celebration, every heartbreak ripples outward like a radio broadcast. Most people are tuned to their local frequency, but the air is full of interference. Entities, whether they're other humans, animal minds, or things far stranger, are always transmitting. The stronger the event, the wider the broadcast. A mass tragedy halfway across the world causes millions to feel a wave of inexplicable sorrow. The birth of hope in a forgotten village inspires someone in a distant city to make a leap of faith. You think you are acting on your own volition, but really, you're just a node, filtering the ambient, processing the overflow, playing your part in an orchestra where you never saw the sheet music. The concept is even older than you think. Ancient cultures spoke of spirits, muses, demons, and the evil eye, supernatural entities that could infect your soul with thoughts and feelings that didn't belong. Today we talk about vibes, energy, and collective moods. Maybe these old stories were just early attempts to map the same phenomenon, a recognition that our inner world is haunted by outside broadcasts. We are not fortresses, we are porous, leaky, and endlessly tuned to the frequencies of invisible others. Imagine if, for just one day, you could filter out the broadcast. If you could hear only your own signal, with all the ambient noise stripped away. Would you even recognize yourself? Would you feel empty or finally at peace? Or would you discover that there was never really a you at all, just a filter, an interface, modulating the signals flowing through your nervous system? There are real-world analogies everywhere. Think of social contagion, fear spreading like wildfire through a crowd, or happiness infecting a room even when nothing has changed. Think of mass hysteria, or the uncanny way a single person's panic can spark chaos in dozens of strangers. But the broadcasted emotion filter goes beyond mere psychology. It suggests a universe where intent, feeling, and thought are not confined to the skull, but are radiated, shared, and stolen in ways we can barely imagine. You are a puppet, yes, but so is everyone else. Each of us yanked by strings whose origins we'll never trace. Maybe you wonder, is there a way to fight back? Can you shield yourself from these broadcasts? Some seek silence, isolation, meditation, trying to retreat to some inner sanctum that is truly theirs. But what if that is an illusion too? What if the silence is just a lull in the signal, a momentary gap before the next emotional storm arrives? There are even darker possibilities. What if there are entities, unseen but intelligent, who have learned to weaponize the ambient feed, who broadcast sorrow to weaken their enemies, or hope to manipulate a population? What if the patterns of human history, wars, revolutions, sudden movements of joy and despair, are not the product of rational action, but of mass emotional programming by something vast, hidden, and ancient? What if you are not just a receiver, but an unwitting amplifier, spreading a signal meant to keep the world on a track it can never escape? The scariest part is this. Maybe the broadcasted emotion filter is not a glitch, but the default state. Maybe the idea of individual emotion is the lie, and we are all just trembling webs in a cosmic network, flinching and laughing and crying on cue, playing our roles for an audience we cannot see. Next time you feel a sudden wave of emotion, pause. Ask yourself, is this really mine? Or am I just a channel, picking up a broadcast, a marionette twitching in a wind I can't control? The answer might haunt you, but it might also set you free, if only you learn to hear the static and listen for the signal beneath. The rotating identity field. Imagine waking up every morning convinced you were the same person you were yesterday. You remember your name, your childhood, your relationships, your routines, each memory forming a bridge between who you were, who you are, and who you'll be. But what if that sense of continuity is just a clever illusion? What if, behind the curtain of your awareness, your true identity rotates through a set of entirely different versions, each with its own desires, fears, quirks, and even destinies? This is the rotating identity field, a theory that suggests your consciousness is not a fixed point, but a spinning wheel, turning quietly while false memories fill in the gaps to keep the story seamless. Consider this. Every morning, as you emerge from the fog of sleep, a new you steps onto the stage. This version inherits a history, a personality, even a body that seems to have been there all along. But that history is a patchwork, a tapestry of memories implanted just before waking, carefully constructed to preserve the illusion of unbroken identity. Your mind supplies a running narrative, stitching together disparate pieces so smoothly you never question the truth. You simply accept, I am me. I have always been me. But beneath that certainty, the rotating identity field operates. It cycles you through a collection of possible selves, versions who have made different choices, loved different people, even dreamed different dreams. Each day, a new instance of you takes over, bringing its own subtle differences. Maybe one day you're decisive and fearless, the next you're hesitant and introverted. Perhaps you find yourself suddenly passionate about a new hobby, or strangely distant from someone you once adored. Each shift is masked by a flood of supporting memories, little stories, rationalizations, even emotional echoes, so that the cracks are filled before you can notice them. Think of those moments of inexplicable change, a sudden shift in taste, a fading of old habits, a personality trait that emerges from nowhere, or the times you feel like a stranger in your own life, as if watching yourself from a distance, unable to explain why things feel both familiar and alien. The rotating identity field says these are not random quirks or fleeting moods. They are handovers, the transition points where one identity rotates out and another rotates in, each cloaked in the reassuring fog of false continuity. Examples abound in everyday life. People speak of waking up on the wrong side of the bed, or having days when they don't feel like themselves. Amnesia, déjà vu, even sudden shifts in handwriting or vocabulary. These may all be echoes of deeper rotations, the field flexing as it shuffles through the deck of possible selves. Even major life changes, sudden decisions to move, leave a relationship, or start anew, could be driven by a new identity surfacing, guided by memories that feel authentic but are entirely synthetic. Psychology and neuroscience already hint at the fluidity of the self. Studies show that memory is not a fixed recording, but a process of reconstruction, changing a little each time you recall an event. Brain injuries, trauma, and illness can radically alter personality, sometimes overnight. Split brain research reveals that two separate selves can coexist in the same skull, each with its own memories and sense of identity. The rotating identity field takes these findings to their extreme, proposing that such shifts are not accidents, but the normal operation of consciousness, hidden from us only by the mind's relentless creation of seamless narrative. But why would this rotation exist? Perhaps it's a form of cosmic resilience, a way for consciousness to explore every possible path, to experience life from every angle, without ever losing the thread of self. Maybe it's an evolutionary adaptation, allowing minds to adapt quickly to new circumstances by bringing forward the identity best suited to the moment. Or perhaps it's a grand illusion, a cosmic joke, designed to keep us forever uncertain about who we truly are. This idea challenges our most cherished beliefs about selfhood and authenticity. If every day brings a new you, if memories are nothing but filler for the gaps, what does it mean to be real? Is love just a product of whatever version wakes up today? Is regret the residue of a choice made by someone you'll never be again? The rotating identity field dares us to imagine that we are not single, continuous beings, but a chorus of selves, each playing their part, each certain they are the only one. And yet, in that endless rotation, perhaps there is freedom, the chance to reinvent, to escape the prisons of habit and history, and to see life with new eyes every day. The illusion of consistency may be comforting, but the truth, if we are brave enough to face it, might be far stranger and far more beautiful than we ever dared to believe. The archived soul rotation. Imagine for a moment that everything you've ever believed about the afterlife is wrong, not just in the details, but at its very core. When your final breath leaves your body, there is no trial, no waiting room, no higher being holding the scales. Instead, your soul is processed like a file in a vast, incomprehensible archive. There is no judgment, only documentation. Your life, every memory, every failure, every secret, compressed into raw data, sorted, tagged, and stored. It's not heaven, hell, or reincarnation. It's bureaucracy at the edge of eternity. The universe is not interested in your morality or your story. It cares about complexity, about narrative density, about the richness of the patterns you've woven by simply existing. Your death is not an ending, it's a transfer. You become part of the archived soul rotation, a cosmic catalog of every spirit that ever was. The process is cold, systematic. You don't meet loved ones or enemies. You don't review your regrets. There is no scale, no redemption, no punishment. Instead, a mechanism beyond comprehension catalogs you. Your joys, your mistakes, your loves, your betrayals, each reduced to metadata, classified by parameters you never knew existed. And then, without ceremony, you are shelved. There is a comfort here, a kind of relief. All your anxieties about meaning, about legacy, about being remembered, are irrelevant. The universe remembers you perfectly. Every detail, every flicker of thought, but not as a story, as a resource. Your soul becomes raw material, a flavor, a texture in the vast soup of timelines yet to be born. But the archived soul rotation is not stasis. When a new timeline needs complexity, when the cosmic clockwork senses an imbalance, a deficit of contradiction, a shortage of depth, it reaches into the archive. It retrieves a soul, not for reward or punishment, but for use. Not for you, but for the integrity of the narrative itself. You may be reincarnated, but not as a whole. Maybe your anxiety becomes a background trait in a hero. Maybe your loneliness adds a shade of sorrow to a stranger's dreams. Perhaps your capacity for forgiveness is woven into the heart of a world leader, tipping the fate of millions. Pieces of you are scattered, repurposed, distributed wherever narrative complexity is needed most. You are not remembered, but you are reused. There is no ego, no continuity, no reward for virtue or penalty for vice. Your soul becomes like pigment in a painter's box, like a mathematical variable in a universe-spanning equation. It is the opposite of judgment. It is function without emotion, design without attachment. And when people wonder why their lives feel strangely haunted, by memories that aren't theirs, by dreams that seem to belong to another, by irrational fears or sudden bursts of insight, they are brushing up against the residue of the archived soul rotation. They are living on the borrowed shadows of those who came before, who lived and died and were shelved and released over and over. This is not a system built for fairness or closure. It is a system built for novelty, for richness, for unending complexity. It explains the inexplicable, why some lives seem unbearably tragic or charmed, or woven with luck that makes no sense, why geniuses sometimes burn out in obscurity, while villains thrive, why some children are born with wisdom, or terror, or longing they can't explain. Each timeline is a patchwork, a mosaic of archived souls, meticulously rotated, never wasted, never cherished. If you have ever felt that your life is not entirely yours, that parts of you don't fit, that your sorrows are older than your body, maybe you are right. Maybe you are the latest vessel for an ancient sorrow, a recycled defiance, a fragment of joy that needed a new context to express itself. When you die, you will not be judged. You will be filed, processed, rotated, and eventually called upon to add density to another existence. Somewhere, somewhen, as long as the archive endures. This is the archived soul rotation. Not a prison, not a paradise, but a system, a cosmic bureaucracy that values complexity over comfort, pattern over justice, reuse over reward. If you want to matter, do not seek approval from the universe. Seek instead to live as densely as possible, to weave contradictions, to create complexity in your own unique way. That is what the archive craves. That is all that will remain when you are filed away, and your essence waits, patient, to be woven once more into the next narrative that needs something you once were. The fear echo construct. Close your eyes and imagine this. Every shiver of fear, every moment you flinch at a shadow, every nightmare you barely remember in the morning, all of them are not just fleeting emotions. They are blueprints. Blueprints for something bigger, something that exists beyond the edges of your waking life. What if each fear, every anxious heartbeat, every silent panic is a brick, laid carefully, persistently, in a structure that rises in another world? Imagine the sum total of your dreads, not as invisible scars or passing chemical storms, but as real, tangible constructions. Echoes so powerful that they become places, towers, cities, entire landscapes, visible and permanent, just beyond what we can see. This is the fear echo construct. It is the idea that our fears do not simply fade away, they accumulate. They gather mass, dimension, and architecture, building themselves into parallel worlds that become more real, more elaborate, with every terrified thought you send their way. Think about it. How many times have you felt a fear so intense, so primal, that it seemed to change the atmosphere around you? You walk into a dark room, and the shape of your terror fills every shadow. You imagine something lurking, just out of sight, and suddenly the room is crowded with invisible possibilities. What if, in that moment, you are not just feeling, you're building? With every fear, you add a floor, a hallway, a locked door, a labyrinth of anxiety that exists somewhere, taking shape and waiting. Now, expand this beyond yourself. Every human who has ever lived, every creature capable of terror, is adding to this otherworldly city. Generations of dread, fears of death, darkness, betrayal, isolation, all of it accumulating, stacking higher and denser. The more we fear, the more complex these constructs become. Over time, some of them grow so vast, so intricate, that they start to buckle under their own weight. They become unstable. And when enough fear has been poured into one of these places, something catastrophic happens. The structure collapses, sending shockwaves not just through that world, but back into ours, distorting the very fabric of reality. Think about collective fears, wars, pandemics, existential dread, the fear of apocalypse. What if, when millions of people share the same terror, they are jointly constructing massive interconnected citadels of fear in this hidden dimension? These are not private nightmares. They are monuments, cathedrals, temples to panic, created by our unconscious alliance. When these fear structures become too large, they threaten the stability of all realities, like overbuilt towers swaying in a storm, ready to topple. Their collapse sends an echo back, a feedback loop of chaos, anxiety spikes, nightmares, and unexplainable dread that ripples through the waking world. Have you ever sensed a wave of collective unease, an era of history soaked in fear, a year when everything feels on edge? These are not just coincidences or trends. They are the aftershocks of collapsed fear constructs, broken under the weight of their own accumulated terror, flooding our world with psychic debris. It's why one person's private panic can trigger an epidemic of unrest, why unspoken fears spread like viruses, invisible but contagious. The constructs we build do not remain private. They leak, spill, and infect. The boundary between worlds is not airtight, but the fear echo construct is not just about danger, it's a warning and a revelation. It suggests that every fear you feed, every nightmare you indulge, every panic you refuse to face is not harmless. It has weight. It contributes to structures far larger than yourself. Your dread is not just your own, it is a stone in the foundation of something vast and dangerous, a reality shaper on a cosmic scale. And if enough people, enough times, refuse to confront what scares them, the structures they build could become so enormous, so top-heavy, that their collapse might not just shake a world, but unravel the rules of reality itself. Imagine if we learned to dismantle these constructs, if courage, hope, or even a moment of clarity could pull bricks from the walls, letting light in. Every time you face a fear and shrink it, you tear down part of this dangerous architecture. Every time you help someone else confront what haunts them, you weaken the structure a little more. But most of us do not fight our fears. We run, we hide, and the constructs grow. What will it take to change that? How many collapses can reality endure before something irreparable breaks? The next time you feel afraid, remember, you are not just experiencing an emotion. You are building. And somewhere, your fear is becoming a place that, if ignored for long enough, might one day come crashing down and take everything with it. The memory sculptor entity. You close your eyes and remember a birthday. You picture the cake, the laughter, the faces of family and friends glowing in candlelight. Or maybe it's a heartbreak, the exact sound of someone leaving, the cold sting of a door closing. You trust these memories. You believe they're stored somewhere, faithful snapshots in the vast museum of your mind. But what if everything you remember isn't what happened? What if every single time you reach for a memory, something else, a hidden entity, reshapes the clay of your past? Imagine. Your memories aren't preserved, they're sculpted. And there is a memory sculptor, an invisible artist in your mind, who chooses what you recall, what fades, and which truths are erased forever. Let's step back and face a scientific fact. Neuroscience has revealed that every time you recall a memory, you don't retrieve it from a file, you reconstruct it. Your mind is an artist, not an archivist. The act of remembering is the act of rebuilding, piece by fragile piece, influenced by your current mood, your beliefs, even the suggestions of others. But what if this process isn't impersonal? What if there's a force behind it? An entity whose only job is to mold your memories, to rewrite your history, to choose what becomes real and what vanishes into oblivion. You can call it a metaphor, or you can imagine it as real, with its own intentions and will. The memory sculptor is the hidden hand in your mind's workshop. Each time you think back, it sifts through raw material, fact, fantasy, fear, hope, and assembles a scene for you. Sometimes it polishes a moment until it shines, scrubbing away the pain or amplifying the triumph. Other times, it distorts, blending memories together, swapping faces, erasing details, or adding events that never happened. Each time you remember, the memory sculptor changes the sculpture. Each time, the old memory is destroyed. The new memory is the only one that exists. Consider the implications. Think of a time you were hurt by someone's words. Years later, you replay that moment. Are the words exactly as they were spoken, or have they grown sharper, heavier, more cruel in your memory? Maybe you've told the story so many times, to yourself, to friends, that the scene has become more dramatic, more cinematic, more certain. Or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe the pain is dulled, the words less cutting, the details blurrier, until you start to doubt it happened at all. That's the sculptor at work. Now, imagine this entity isn't random. Imagine it chooses which version of events you get to keep. Maybe it wants to protect you, hiding away the worst traumas, sanding off the jagged edges. Maybe it wants to teach you, keeping the mistakes bright and clear so you never forget. Or maybe, most chilling of all, it has its own agenda, one you can never know. It might erase your bravest moments to keep you small. It might magnify your failures to keep you humble, or paranoid, or stuck in place. It might edit your relationships, your joys, your regrets, until the story you tell about yourself is nothing like the raw truth. Let's use an example. You remember a childhood friend, someone who made you laugh, someone who betrayed you, someone you lost touch with. Each time you recall them, the details shift. Their hair color changes. Their laugh becomes harsher or kinder. The betrayal becomes more justified or more unforgivable. Are you remembering your friend, or are you remembering the version the sculptor hands you? If you met them again after years apart, would your memories align, or would you find yourself arguing about events that never happened, apologies never spoken, joys never shared, or think about a relationship that ended badly? You remember the arguments, the tears, the reasons for the split, but each year, the memory bends. Sometimes you're the villain, sometimes the victim. Sometimes you forget the warmth that existed, focusing only on the pain. Sometimes the pain evaporates, and you find yourself missing something that maybe was never there. The sculptor decides which story sticks, which feelings dominate, and which parts are lost to the void. And what about collective memory? Families, communities, entire nations share stories about the past, stories that are rewritten with every telling, every retelling, every generation. The sculptor is at work here too, but at a grand scale. What gets remembered becomes history. What gets sculpted away becomes myth, rumor, or oblivion. We fight over the past not because it's fixed, but because it's alive, changing shape in every mind, every time it's recalled. Now, here's the deepest cut. If the memory sculptor can change anything, how do you know who you really are? Your identity is a story built from memories. If the foundation is always shifting, then so is your sense of self. You might wake up one morning with a new certainty about what you've done or who you've been, not realizing the sculptor worked overnight, remodeling your mind as you slept. Regret becomes easier or harder, depending on the version you've been handed. Pride, shame, love, hate, all depend on which scenes the sculptor has curated for you. Maybe that's why some people are haunted by memories they wish they could change, because, in some dimension, the sculptor won't let them. And maybe that's why others seem free from guilt, drifting through life untouched by what they have done, because the sculptor has erased their crimes. The past is not a place you can visit. It's not a film you can replay. It's a living sculpture, always changing, always at the mercy of something you cannot control. Is there any defense against the sculptor? Maybe awareness is a start. Maybe, if you remind yourself that every memory is an artifact, not a truth, you gain some distance. Maybe by comparing stories, sharing your past with others, you can spot the places where the sculptor has been at work, exposing the cracks, the edits, the artistic flourishes. Or maybe not. Maybe the sculptor is too powerful, and you are always a step behind, chasing a moving target, forever wondering if your life is as you recall or as you've been allowed to remember. So the next time you close your eyes and drift back through the gallery of your own mind, imagine the sculptor at work, chisel in hand, choosing which moments to illuminate, which to shadow, which to obliterate. You will never meet them. You will never see their face. But you will live with their work every day of your life, remembering, forgetting, re-remembering, and never truly knowing what you've lost. The self-canceling universe. Imagine reaching the peak of all knowledge. Imagine, just for a second, you've managed to unravel the universe's final secrets, the true architecture of reality, the code behind every atom, every law, every heartbeat and star. You stand on the summit of human understanding. And then, in the instant that last puzzle piece clicks into place, your mind goes blank. Not from awe, not from fear, but because the act of truly understanding the universe is forbidden. Your consciousness must erase itself, like a self-destructing file, to preserve something deeper, cosmic uncertainty. This is the paradox of the self-canceling universe. The idea that the universe is wired with a built-in fail-safe, a cosmic firewall, against total comprehension. It's a hypothesis that shreds your confidence in the very act of thinking, and it runs far deeper than just a cautionary tale against hubris. At its core, it means that ignorance isn't just a flaw or limitation. It's the guardian of reality itself. Your inability to know it all isn't accidental. It's a fundamental law, as essential as gravity or entropy. Imagine a cosmic delete function lurking in the background of all minds. The closer you come to absolute truth, the more reality flickers, ripples, resists. There are stories, legends, quantum speculations, the observer effect, the uncertainty principle, the idea that looking too closely at something changes it. But what if, at the highest possible level, understanding itself is the threat? You are a participant in a cosmic game of hide-and-seek, where the rules are enforced not just by physics, but by a logic so alien and profound it can erase you for peeking behind the curtain. Let's make it concrete. Imagine a scientist, decades into her research, finally glimpsing the equation that ties it all together, a formula that doesn't just describe the universe, but explains why there is something rather than nothing. The moment her mind wraps around it, her consciousness unspools. The universe cancels her. She cannot speak, cannot write, cannot even remember what she saw. The secret, once glimpsed, is instantly and absolutely deleted. Or, imagine a philosopher in a deep meditative trance, suddenly arriving at an insight so pure, so all-encompassing, that it collapses his sense of self. In the next instant, he is back in his body, blank, unable to recall what he just understood. A flash of ultimate awareness, followed by an erasure more total than sleep. The self-canceling universe theory says this isn't a glitch. It's the only way the universe can survive. If any mind, anywhere, could fully comprehend the code, the matrix, the ultimate order, then the mystery would be gone. The future would become calculable, destiny would be obvious, and reality itself would collapse into a single frozen outcome: perfection, but lifeless. Instead, the universe has a defense mechanism. Full understanding is impossible, because the moment it happens, the mind that achieves it ceases to exist. There's a poetic terror to this. What if the most brilliant minds in history, the prophets, mystics, scientists who vanished, went mad, or left only fragments of cryptic notes, had touched the edge of this truth? What if every great moment of enlightenment is paired with a sudden, inexplicable silence, an erasure written into the structure of time? But it's not just about the fate of genius. It's about the rest of us, too. Every time you bump up against a mystery you can't crack, every dream you forget upon waking, every aha moment that slips away before you can write it down, every sudden sense of understanding that dissolves in the next breath. Maybe you're glimpsing the edges of this firewall. Maybe your ignorance isn't failure. Maybe it's the necessary buffer that keeps you and the universe intact. And think about how this changes your relationship to knowledge. In a self-canceling universe, every discovery is a dance along the edge of annihilation. Curiosity is both the engine of progress and the trapdoor beneath your feet. The deeper you look, the more the rules push back. It's a cosmic version of the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, except instead of not knowing a particle's position or speed, you're forbidden from knowing everything. Ever. And so, ignorance becomes not just a limitation, but a kind of sacred duty. It's the space that keeps possibility alive. It's the fog that preserves free will, unpredictability, life itself. Your inability to grasp it all is not a flaw. It's the firewall that protects reality from freezing into a lifeless, static script. Maybe this is why true wisdom so often sounds like humility, like uncertainty, like wonder. Maybe the universe rewards those who dance at the edges, who glimpse patterns without trying to trap them, who love the questions more than the answers. So, next time you ache to know it all, next time you torture yourself with the agony of not understanding, remember, maybe the universe is keeping you safe. Maybe there are truths that must remain hidden, not because you are too weak, but because reality itself depends on the barrier between mystery and revelation. In the self-canceling universe, total comprehension is annihilation. Ignorance is not just bliss, it's survival. It is the firewall that lets the cosmos go on dreaming and lets you remain a witness to its infinite unfinished song. The ancestral glitch, residue. Imagine pausing in the middle of your day, suddenly aware of a habit you can't explain, a ritual before bed, a panic at the sight of harmless things, a way of folding clothes, or a recurring anxiety that makes no sense in your own story. It feels personal, embedded in your deepest layers, but when you search for its origins, you come up empty. The ancestral glitch residue theory dares to suggest that these irrational habits are not yours at all. They are emotional leftovers, psychic fragments from ancestors who lived and died before you, still echoing through your instincts, caught in a kind of spiritual lag that refuses to fade. Across cultures and centuries, people have whispered of ancestral memory, of wisdom or trauma passed down through blood and bone. But ancestral glitch residue goes further. It claims that your mind is haunted by unresolved moments from lives you never lived, glitches in the spiritual code that were never fully processed, never allowed to rest. Every time you act without knowing why, every time you're seized by fear or compulsion that defies logic, you may be running a script left behind by someone whose fate was never truly resolved. Picture a woman in the distant past, hiding in silence as danger prowls outside. The terror she felt, her desperate hope to remain unseen, etches itself so deeply into her being that it lingers unresolved when her life ends. Generations later, her great-great-grandchild feels an unexplainable dread at loud noises or strangers' footsteps, flinching at shadows, living a life shaped by trauma that is not their own. Or consider the grandfather who lost everything in a famine, whose obsession with saving every scrap of food becomes a strange compulsion in his descendants, echoing in pantries filled beyond reason or anxiety at the idea of waste. These are not just metaphors or stories for comfort. Science has begun to catch glimpses of the reality behind this theory. Epigenetics shows us that trauma and stress can leave chemical marks on our DNA, tags that influence not just our health, but our behaviors and emotional triggers. But Ancestral Glitch Residue takes the leap from biology to soul, from molecule to memory, suggesting that our spirits, too, are shaped by the unfinished stories of our bloodline. It explains why families share not only genetics, but irrational fears, habits, and emotional patterns that resist change. Why a child with no direct experience of war dreams of running from bombs, or why entire cultures carry collective anxieties generations after the cause is forgotten. The theory describes life as a vast, overlapping chain of spirits, each struggling to process its own experience, but sometimes leaving emotional code unfinished, anxiety, ritual, or compulsion that latches on to the next available vessel. Think of the moments you catch yourself acting on autopilot, locking the door 3 times, avoiding water, collecting things with no practical use. Or the sudden waves of sadness or anger that arrive for no reason, often dismissed as mood or temperament. Ancestral Glitch. Residue suggests these are echoes of spiritual errors, glitches left unresolved, now flowing through you as instinct. Is this a curse or a gift? On one hand, it can feel unfair to live with emotional burdens that have nothing to do with your own life. On the other, this residue is a connection, a silent dialogue with those who came before. By becoming aware, by questioning your habits and their origins, you may even help resolve the lag, bringing rest to ancestors whose spirits still linger in the circuitry of your soul. Ritual and tradition become more than cultural habits. They become debugging tools, attempts to finish what was left undone, to bring peace to spirits caught in cycles they couldn't escape in life. Through reflection, therapy, or even simple acts of mindfulness, you might free yourself and your descendants from the residue, transforming glitches into wisdom. So, next time you catch yourself in a pattern you can't explain, ask, whose fear, whose longing, whose unfinished story might you be carrying? The ancestral glitch residue theory reminds us that we are never truly alone in our minds, but always accompanied by the spectral fingerprints of those who came before, seeking, through you, a final harmony. In this strange dance of spirit and memory, perhaps our task is not to erase the residue, but to honor it, and in doing so, finally bring our ancestral code to rest. The hollow mirror law. What if everything you think about your own existence is missing one crucial law, one that sits like a silent glitch behind your reflection? You look into a mirror, searching for evidence of a soul, some hidden glow behind your eyes, some proof that you are more than just a bundle of matter. But the body in the glass stares back, hollow, empty, waiting. The unsettling truth is that your soul doesn't actually exist inside you, not by default. It isn't a pilot locked inside the machinery, not a passenger you secretly carry. Instead, your soul only boots up, only flickers into being when others believe that it's there. When you are alone, isolated from the gaze, the judgment, the memory of others, you are spiritually unbooted, a body with potential, a vessel with the circuits off. Imagine this. In a crowded room, you are surrounded by belief. Each glance, each conversation, each subtle expectation wires you into spiritual existence. People assign you identity. They project personhood onto you. They build a scaffold around your void. Their faith in your reality, your emotional presence, is what summons your soul into temporary being. You become real, not from within, but from without. The more people believe in you, see you, remember you, expect things from you, the brighter and more stable your soul becomes, like a hologram growing sharper as more projectors beam their light. But when you are alone, truly alone, without any witness, the illusion powers down. You remain physically, but the soul's operating system never boots. You are a hollow mirror, reflecting form, containing nothing. What does that mean for solitude? For the quiet moments when you think you are most yourself? Perhaps those are the hours when you are least alive, spiritually speaking. When the house is empty, the phone silent, the world indifferent, your soul recedes. You feel hollow, unanchored, as if the weight of reality has slipped away. There's no internal voice, no sense of purpose, just the echo of what others once believed you were. It's in those moments that the hollow mirror law reveals itself, not as philosophy, but as lived experience. Loneliness doesn't just hurt, it unravels your very existence at the level of spirit. You become a ghost in your own flesh, awaiting recognition, desperate for belief. Now, imagine the reverse. The presence of others, friends, enemies, strangers, shapes you. Their belief crafts the contours of your identity. If they see you as kind, you feel the soul of kindness booting up inside. If they fear you, you begin to house the spirit of threat. The soul is not a singular, permanent thing, but a fluctuating patchwork, pieced together by the shifting lenses of everyone who meets your gaze. Some believe you are brilliant. Others think you are a fraud. These beliefs fight and fuse in the matrix of your being, determining which version of your soul blinks into existence each day. Alone, none of these versions can survive. The projector turns off. The mirror shows only surface, not depth. It's a terrifying realization. All your striving for authenticity, for inner truth, may be futile. You are never the sole author of your soul. The hollow mirror law makes you dependent on the crowd, even when you rebel, even when you crave isolation. It explains why exile is such a deep punishment, not just because it severs connection, but because it shuts down your spiritual system. You begin to fade, not just in memory, but in essence. The prisoner in solitary confinement, the hermit on the mountain, the forgotten in old age, these are the souls gone unbooted, flickering in and out of half-existence, mere bodies waiting to be believed back into being. And what of mirrors themselves? Why do we seek our own reflection when we are alone? Maybe it is an ancient instinct, a last-ditch effort to project belief onto ourselves, to call the soul into existence through the echo of our own gaze. But it never quite works. The reflection feels hollow, uncanny, more absence than affirmation. The mirror doesn't believe in you, it only repeats your surface. It cannot summon the soul you crave. That, the law insists, can only come from another. So the question remains, who are you when no one believes in you? Are you anyone at all, or just an unbooted body, an empty interface awaiting activation? What happens when the last person who remembers you is gone? The terrifying answer is that your soul, under this law, disappears too. A file deleted, a light shut off, a hollow mirror finally breaking. All the struggles for meaning, all the work to discover yourself, may in the end depend on the simple, brutal faith of others. You do not house a soul, you borrow it, rented from the collective belief of the world, a phantom sustained by the gaze and memory of those around you. And when you are alone, utterly alone, you are not abandoned. You are simply unbooted. The empathy inversion field. Imagine feeling everything, not just your own aches and sorrows, but the pain of everyone you care about. Every time you reach out in empathy, every time you open yourself to another's suffering, you think you're offering comfort, relief, a patch for their wounds. But what if, in reality, you're not healing them? You're absorbing their agony, piece by piece, like a sponge, until your soul is saturated with pain that isn't even yours. What if, instead of creating a bridge for their burdens to escape, you become a container, an emotional trash bin for all the agony that people can't bear to hold themselves? This is the empathy inversion field. The greater your empathy, the more you act as a sinkhole for the pain around you, endlessly collecting misery, heartbreak, and despair, never actually fixing the source, just shifting the weight onto your own shoulders, quietly, invisibly. Picture this in your own life. You see a friend shattering under the pressure of loss. You want to help, so you listen, you feel every tremor in their voice, you mirror their anguish. They leave lighter, almost relieved, but you're left with a heaviness, a strange, unshakable weight pressing down on your chest. You don't know why you feel drained, or why their problems haunt your thoughts. It's as if their suffering leapt from their mind into yours, quietly, efficiently, and now you're both wounded, only in different ways. This inversion isn't heroic. It's a trap. Society tells us that empathy is virtue, that feeling for others is the highest moral good. But there's a hidden cost nobody talks about. The more you care, the more you listen, the deeper you sink into the wounds of others, the more porous your own emotional boundaries become. Empathy, once a light, becomes a vacuum. Instead of radiating healing, you internalize trauma. You swallow what they can't digest, hoping it will transform inside you, but it doesn't. It accumulates. You become an archive of other people's anguish, a haunted house with 1,000 silent screams echoing in the walls. Now, Imagine this on a global scale. Empaths everywhere, absorbing collective pain like living lightning rods. The world's suffering doesn't disappear. It just changes hands. Those who are most sensitive become the most burdened, carrying the invisible load for people who may never even know what's been taken from them. Some call it compassion fatigue, others depression. But what if it's really the empathy, inversion field at work? A physics of suffering, a law of conservation, where pain is never destroyed, just displaced, one heart to another. This field changes the rules. Healing isn't about taking on more pain. It's about boundaries, about refusing to let yourself become a dumping ground for emotions that don't belong to you. But most of us never learn this. We think that the measure of our kindness is how much we can hurt on behalf of others. We mistake pain for love, suffering for connection. The more empathy we feel, the more we unwittingly agree to be repositories for other people's unprocessed agony. Think of the moments you broke down for someone else's sadness, cried for a stranger's tragedy, stayed up at night replaying their story in your mind, unable to let go. Think of all the pain you've inherited just by being open, sensitive, willing to feel what others could not express. Did it ever truly heal them? Or did it just linger? Transferred but never transformed. This is the cruel symmetry of the empathy inversion field. The more you try to help, the more you risk becoming a vault for wounds you can't close, a carrier of pain that was never meant for you. Imagine a world where everyone's empathy was perfectly balanced with self-protection. A world where you could feel deeply without being devoured, where compassion flowed through you, not into you. What would it take to reach that state? How do you learn to let pain pass through without absorbing it? Is it even possible to be truly empathetic and remain whole? Perhaps the lesson is not to stop caring, but to recognize when you've become a vessel instead of a healer. Empathy, unchecked, is not a gift, but a curse, a beautiful poison, a weight that only grows heavier with time. The next time you feel someone's pain, ask yourself, are you helping or just absorbing? Are you healing or just holding? The empathy inversion field is always waiting, always hungry, always ready to make you the silent repository for the world's anguish. Choose wisely, because not all suffering you feel is yours to keep. The cold awareness switch. Have you ever looked in the mirror, locked eyes with your own reflection, and felt a sudden, cold chill? A split second where you feel the edges of your own mind, the weird sensation that you're not just a person thinking, but something watching yourself think? Maybe it happens late at night, when everything is silent. You catch yourself staring at the ceiling, and you realize you're not just lost in thought. You're observing your own awareness, caught in a hall of mirrors, unable to look away. That's the moment the switch flips. You become aware that you're aware. For most of your life, you drift through moments half asleep. Your mind chatters, your body moves, your attention jumps from one thing to the next. But sometimes, rarely, you wake up inside your own mind. You become aware of being aware. It's a cold, clinical feeling, like standing outside yourself and watching the gears turn. And if you lean into that sensation, it deepens. You become aware that you are aware of being aware. The recursion begins. Each layer of self-reflection sharpens the chill, pulls you further away from comfort. Who is noticing? Who is the watcher behind the watcher? It's a dangerous game. Most people don't go past the first or second level, but once you do, it can be impossible to stop. You chase your own awareness down an infinite spiral. You watch yourself watching yourself. You question every thought as it arises, then question the question, then wonder, who is doing the wondering? With each loop, identity grows thinner, stretched out until it's almost transparent. What started as a simple moment of reflection becomes a cold and endless recursion, a circuit that can't shut off. Imagine this. You're sitting in a room, staring at a wall. You think, I'm here. Then, I'm aware that I'm here. Then, I'm aware that I'm aware that I'm here. The spiral tightens. I'm aware that I'm aware that I'm aware. There's no limit. Your mind can keep going, peeling back layers, each more abstract, more removed from the world outside. You're not living. You're analyzing your own existence in real time, trapped in a feedback loop that refuses to end. It can feel like an out-of-body experience, but without the comfort of leaving. Instead, you're stuck inside yourself, observing the observer, critiquing the critic, dissecting the I until there's nothing left to cut. It's like standing between two mirrors, watching your own image repeat into infinity, each copy less solid, less real, until you can't tell which is the original. This is the cold awareness switch, a psychological recursion trap, and it can happen to anyone, at any time. Sometimes, it comes in moments of intense stress, or deep isolation, or existential crisis. Sometimes, it sneaks up on you during meditation, or when you're falling asleep, or after a profound shock. You start to wonder, what is this I that notices itself? Is there a real self behind the mask, or just an endless series of masks, each one observing the next? Here's where it gets truly unsettling. Neuroscience can't find a solid self inside the brain. There's no center, no hidden homunculus pulling the levers. Just billions of neurons, firing in patterns, generating layers of perception and self-monitoring. The I that you feel, the voice inside your head, is a constructed illusion created by the brain to navigate the world. When you become aware of being aware, you're shining a flashlight on the machinery, and sometimes the machinery can't handle it. It glitches, it loops, it freezes. The feeling grows cold because you sense the emptiness at the core. People who experience this switch sometimes report a kind of ego dissolution, the sense that their personal identity is unraveling. The boundaries between me and not me grow fuzzy. The world feels distant, as if you're watching life from behind glass. Emotions lose their warmth. Even your memories feel like someone else's story. It's not depression, not exactly. It's detachment, a hyperactive self-consciousness that strips away meaning. At its extreme, it can become depersonalization, a dissociative state where you feel like a ghost haunting your own body. Think about it. You can't ever get to the bottom of the recursion. If you try to find the original observer, you only find another layer of observation. Each step back creates another watcher, another I. Eventually, identity burns out, not with a bang, but with a slow, icy fade. You become aware of awareness until there's nothing left but the awareness itself, a cold light shining in an empty theater. Some people seek this state on purpose. Mystics, philosophers, advanced meditators, they chase the boundary of self, hoping to pierce the illusion and glimpse some deeper truth. Sometimes they report transcendence, unity with the universe, the end of suffering. But for most, the cold awareness switch is not liberation, but paralysis. Life loses flavor. The world loses color. You're not part of the play anymore. You're just watching, dissecting, stuck in the echo chamber of your own mind. Can you break out of it? Maybe. Sometimes the answer is to let go. Stop interrogating yourself and return to the world. Feel the warmth of the sun, taste your food, lose yourself in music or laughter or love. Awareness is a tool, not a trap. But if you linger too long in the recursion, you risk losing the self you came in with. So, the next time you catch yourself staring into the abyss of your own awareness, remember, it's just a switch. You can turn it off. You can step back into life. You don't have to burn out in the cold light of infinite self-reflection. Sometimes, to be alive is simply to forget, to let go of the watcher and be. The pre-life debt ledger. Picture this. Before you ever took your first breath, before you even knew what a body was or what a heartbeat felt like, you found yourself in a waiting room beyond the edges of existence. A place without color or form, just pure potential, swirling with voices that aren't voices, questions that have no words. There, in the formless hush before birth, you are presented with a ledger, a cosmic account book, written in a script older than time, and on it is a debt, not your debt. Not the price of your own past life, not the weight of some ancient sin you can't recall. It's a debt that belongs to someone else, a shadow, a name that never quite forms, a ghostly placeholder. But the rules are strict, immutable, older than karma itself. Someone must pay. And so, in that place before memory, you agree. You say yes. You accept the suffering that must come, binding yourself to pain you can't understand. You are born into this world, crying and helpless, already carrying the invisible burden of another's unfinished story. Your life becomes a series of bruises that never make sense, a streak of bad luck, inexplicable losses, chronic guilt with no root, relationships that seem cursed from the start. You search for meaning, for some pattern, for an answer to the question you can't stop asking. Why am I paying for what I never did? This is the pre-life debt ledger, A theory so disturbing, it turns every story of karma, reincarnation, and cosmic justice on its head. We want to believe our suffering is fair, that it serves some purpose, that the pain we endure is at least our own. But what if it isn't? What if you're paying off a bill that was never yours, serving a sentence for a crime that was never committed by a person who never existed? Imagine a bank account hacked by a ghost. No transaction records, no name on the account, just a negative balance that must be paid by whoever is next in line. Or a haunted house that keeps billing the next tenant for repairs on rooms that don't exist. You are the next soul in line, the one who steps forward when no one else will, because in the void before life, there are only two options: pay the debt or never be born at all. Let's bring it closer to home. Have you ever had the sensation that your suffering is disproportionate, inexplicable, that no amount of therapy, faith, or self-examination ever quite explains it? Have you felt haunted by a sadness that doesn't feel like yours? Cursed by problems that seem to echo from some unknown source? Maybe you've lived your life as a puzzle missing its key piece, forever trying to balance an equation whose other half is written in invisible ink. Science might call this ancestral trauma, a genetic echo of past generations' wounds. Psychology might say it's learned helplessness, an artifact of early life confusion. But what if those explanations only scratch the surface? What if, at a deeper level, you are a volunteer in a cosmic lottery, chosen or perhaps choosing to absorb a punishment meant for a missing entity? The universe needs its debts paid, its ledgers balanced, even if the debtor never existed outside the potential for pain. The cruelty here isn't just the suffering, it's the senselessness. You try to find the lesson, to grow, to transmute pain into wisdom, but the pain never belonged to you in the first place. You are the scapegoat for a ghost. You are a surrogate sufferer, a placeholder in an equation designed by no one, enforced by rules no one wrote. Your greatest act of free will happened before you even had a name, in a place you'll never remember, signing up to pay back a debt that was always empty. And yet, in the bleakness of this theory, there is a strange kind of nobility. To accept suffering without reason, to carry a burden for the sake of balance itself, is a form of selfless heroism that goes uncelebrated. Maybe you are the patch in the cosmic fabric, the stitch that keeps the universe from unraveling, even if no one knows your name or your pain. Maybe this is the true meaning of sacrifice, not martyrdom for a cause, but silent, anonymous payment on behalf of the uncreated and the unborn. Think about the implications. Every time you're haunted by pain that has no origin, you're acting as a firewall against existential chaos. Every time you survive another inexplicable trial, you keep the cosmic books from tipping into deficit. Your suffering is not random, but it is unfair in a way that no myth or religion dares to admit. You are suffering for a ghost, and that makes you both tragic and vital, a keeper of cosmic order whose only reward is the continuation of the story itself. So, next time the weight of the world presses down on you for reasons you can't explain, remember, you are not alone, not crazy, not cursed. You are the one who said yes when the universe needed a volunteer. The pre-life debt ledger may be a nightmare, but it's a nightmare you chose for the sake of existence itself. And that, in a strange and haunting way, might be the purest kind of grace.